Good evening and welcome to the Ashland Planning Board meeting, June 12th, 2014. We're meeting in the Board of Selectmen room, second floor of the Ashland Town Hall, and it's now 7:16 p.m. We have a 7:30 public hearing for special permit at 41 Front Street. Also, we're going to be opening up shortly thereafter at 7:35, public discussion for 41 Front Street Needham Bank site plan, followed at 8:30 by a discussion on the Rail Transit District, followed by Planning Director's report, announcements, meetings, committee assignments, and member reports. So we were going to open up with minutes and invoices from that.
Minutes for March 27th. Can we dive into those? Okay.
Anything you guys are looking for as far as amendments, modifications?
No? Yes.
There was, this is the March 27th. Let's see, where is it? Oh, it's on, I think, page 2. Maybe it's page 3. There's a, yes, page 3, just before it says item number 2. It says the planning board took a 30-second break for two firefighters that lost their lives in a fire. Instead of saying 30-second break, it should be 30-second moment of silence.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, I have one. Page 2, line 46.
Hold on just a second, please.
Yep.
Page 2, line 46?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Where it talks about language in the bylaw for setbacks and buffers for solar panel fields in residential areas. Would like to maintain the current setback of 50 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Would like to maintain, I want to add the word minimum was the discussion, right? So we're in favor of.
Maintain the current setback of a minimum of 50 feet.
Maintain a minimum, at minimum, the current setback of 50 feet.
Maintain at
So-
minimum.
So at a minimum, we talked about
Right.
actually increasing it, but at a minimum, we wanted it to be 50. Not
Okay.
Everyone okay with that? Good. Anything else? Do you have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of March 27th, 2014 as amended.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Okay. All right, let's go on to April 10th. Are we prepared for April 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
Any changes?
I have no edits.
No edits, no.
Okay.
Then I move to approve the minutes of April 10th, 2014 as printed.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Okay. All right, and then the final set, which is April.
4-0, right?
Oh, 4-0.
Is Vanessa allowed to vote for these?
Oh, for the ones that she's not on. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you couldn't.
And then there's that.
You got it. You got it, sorry.
Good catch.
Can she second the other one?
Well, yeah. Legally, she's allowed to vote.
Yeah.
It's just
It's to accept the
better
minutes.
form to abstain
not to,
when you
yeah.
weren't at the meeting.
And then
So
there's
5-0. See the next ones?
Okay. April 24th.
I'm okay.
You okay?
Changes? No?
Nope.
Do you have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of April 24th, 2014 as printed.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Okay, let's dive into bills. We have two inspectional engineering bills from GCG Associates for Village of Americas, one for 1530 and one for 1755. We have a bill for Blattman, Bobrowski, and Mead for Jefferson at Ashland, the Rail Transit District. This is a bill in regard to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which has given its permission to be paid through this route for 576. ZBA public advertisements in the newspaper. One for 123 Olive Street, 4896, another one for 41 Front, 5508, another one for 106 Woodland, 2448, and another one for 208 Pond at 2754. There's also a bill from CDR McGuire, which is an inspectional engineer that's doing inspections at Ashland Woods over on West Union Street for 7/33/24 for a total of $47.50.30.
I move to pay the bills in the amount you just stated.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
The only ones?
So let me just confirm that. Yeah. While you're signing, I want to bring two exciting presentations to the public's attention. One is called Greentown, and it's being sponsored by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, Metro West Regional Collaborative, some other regional groups. How to get there and why it matters, and I'll just read the flyer. It's as follows. You've heard about how green infrastructure, stormwater management, and low-impact development can help municipalities better manage their environmental resources, improve residents' quality of life, and even save taxpayers money. Join us and learn about practical tools and ideas on sustainable development from policymakers and practitioners to help you plan a roadmap to your green town. This will be held on Wednesday, June 25th, 2014, 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Registration and networking begins at 8:30 a.m. Morse Institute Library, 14 East Central Street, Natick. And you can register at bit.ly/Greentown. That's bit.ly/Greentown, capital G, capital T. There's one other presentation coming up that I would like to bring to the public's attention. It's called 10 Principles for Building Healthy Places. It's an initiative of the Urban Land Institute based in Washington, and I also believe they have a satellite office located in Cambridge. The presenter is David Scheuer of the Retrovest Companies, which is based in Burlington, Vermont. It will be held in the Ashland High School Auditorium, 65 East Union Street, Tuesday, June 24th at 7 p.m. And if you'd like more information on that, please feel free to contact me at my email or my phone number. My email is nstrasberg, strosberg, @ashlandmass.com.
Okay. We got a few more minutes if you want to, if there's any other announcements. Director reports.
Not on my end. Are there other things that that folks would like to
Subcommittee
say?
announcements, public announcements.
Everyone should go to the farmer's market on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be exciting. Grand opening.
What time does it open?
Early.
Hmm?
Early.
Who knows? Anybody know? 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, 9 a.m.
9.
9 to 1.
Maybe I'll see what the comp plan committee is now.
It was early.
The Comprehensive Plan Committee, a lot of folks in town have been working very hard on that. A contract was signed with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and the group is excited to move forward on that, as are the folks over at MAPC. And now that the contract is signed, MAPC is coming up with a timeline for how they want to proceed over the summer, which I will distribute to the group in the very near future.
Okay. Anything else? Up here? Okay. Adam, you want to come up? You want to come up? Okay, so this is our town council, and he's going to, you're with us for 41 Front Street? Yeah, usually you're right here. Usually you're here already. So.
We should also introduce Matt Chenard.
Oh yeah, Matt Chenard's our associate member. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
How are you? So we have the public hearing at 7:30. I was gonna, unless you see an issue with us, gonna open the discussion ahead of that.
It can open in advance because although it's a public hearing for the special permit, it's also a site plan review.
Yep.
So the site plan review is not a public hearing process, that can open whenever.
Okay, so why don't we open that now? You have public discussion for 41 Front Street, and then in, we got about 2 minutes before we'll do the hearing, so if the applicant wants to start setting up, probably now's a good time. If you need anything beyond the easel here, they're just gonna do 1 easel, 2 easels, as far as that goes. Okay.
Say a few words if I could.
Okay. So what else?
Maybe after 7:30 though.
Yep. So before I open up the public hearing, what we're planning on tonight is Nat will open us up. He's got some little something planned, and then we will open up for the applicant to do their presentation. We may go back and forth with town council from there. We'll open it up to the board up here. If there's any specific questions, a little back and forth between the applicant and the board. And then from there, we'll open up for public discussion. Okay, so if people, at that point in time, you'll get an opportunity to ask questions and go from there. Any other public announcements? You have 3 minutes. Usually we're pretty good for that. All right. Are we looking good? By that clock, we're looking at 7:30. And I'm gonna just read into the record. Town of Ashland notice of public hearing. The Ashland Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 12th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. in the Selectmen Meeting Room in the Ashland Town Hall for an application for a special permit to allow for some signs larger or in greater number than allowed by the zoning bylaw for Needham Bank under Chapter 282, subsection 5.3.20. Signed special permits. The project is proposed for 41 Front Street. Said property is located on Assessor's Map 14, Lot 290. Said property is owned by 41 Front Street LLC. The application is available for review in the planning office between 8 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. on Wednesday or by appointment. You can call down Town Hall, and the Town Hall's closed on Friday. So, that's what I've got. It's over to you.
On May 21st, the Planning Department received 2 applications from Needham Bank, an application for site plan review and an application for a special permit. These regarded a proposal to construct a drive-through bank branch at 41 Front Street in Ashland. The property is approximately 0.24 acres in size. As is stated in the application, the proposed use, subject to obtaining required permitting, would be pursuant to a lease of the property between the owner and the applicant. The property is located in the Downtown Commerce Zoning District. There's also an overlay zoning district in this location. It is called Ashland Downtown District A. The applicant, however, has chosen to use the underlying district, Downtown Commerce, as the zoning framework in this process. This is legally permissible. As I previously mentioned, there are 2 applications that were submitted to the Planning Department for this project, one for site plan review and one for a special permit. The Planning Board must deliberate in response to both of these applications. What does this mean? Regarding the application for site plan review, the Planning Board must examine the application to ensure, and I'm going to quote from section 9.4.2 of the zoning bylaw, that the new development is designed in a manner which reasonably protects safety or internal circulation and egress, provides adequate access to each structure for fire and service equipment, assures adequate utility service and drainage, protects visual and environmental qualities, and protects the property values in the town. Generally, projects may be conditioned through site plan review. Only very rarely and under quite unusual and egregious circumstances are there grounds for appeal in site plan review. The other application is for a special permit for signage. As is stated in the bylaw, the Planning Board may authorize larger signs or a greater number of signs by the grant of special permit, where such relief is not detrimental to the neighborhood or the town. According to the signage regulations, there can be only one principal sign attached to a building per business establishment. The applicant here is proposing 6 such signs, 4 of the 6 signs located on the 4 wall faces of the proposed cupola each occupy more than 15% of the area of the wall on which each is located. 15% maximum is the bylaw requirement. There are other signs proposed as well, which I'm sure the applicant will discuss. Please remember that the planning board has far more regulatory leeway in the special permit process as compared to the site plan review process. In the special permit process, the board can focus on the appropriateness of the proposal using the 6 criteria set forth in section 9.3.2 of the bylaw. In concurrence with the planning board's deliberation of these 2 applications, the Ashland Zoning Board of Appeals is deliberating on an application from Needham Bank regarding this same proposal for 41 Front Street. This is a completely separate process. Before I conclude, I would like to share a couple of thoughts about this proposal. The significance of Needham Bank's proposal to construct a bank branch at 41 Front Street cannot be overstated. This facility would lie in the very heart of downtown Ashland and would be a key component, both visually and symbolically, of the neighborhood fabric. Like all applications deliberated upon by the planning board, please give this application your most careful consideration. In speaking with officials from the bank and from my own knowledge of the bank's contributions in Needham, Needham Bank clearly sees itself as a community-oriented bank. To this end, it is my hope that the bank would see itself as a true steward of the Ashland community. At the very least, 41 Front Street should have a design and layout worthy of its proposed location. Pushing the envelope in terms of aesthetics, site sustainability, and site circulation should be a given. I'm sure the applicant and the applicant's team will speak to you more about this. That's all I have.
Okay. There's a couple other pieces of information we'll make sure get circulated later.
Sure.
If there's members from design review here, which I think there are, ARA also here, anybody gonna represent ARA, Downtown Collaborative? Okay. Downtown Collaborative. All right, so,
Oh, there's one more item. Yeah. There is an updated photometric plan which I'd like to pass to the planning board if I could.
all right, with that being said, Adam, do you have anything you want to add, or you good for now?
Not as of yet.
All right, the applicant wanted to come up and tell us everything they want to tell us about the project tonight. Great.
Good evening. My name is Joe Morrison. I'm with Paramount Partners, the development consultant on the project for the applicant. On behalf of the applicant, Needham Bank, and the entire project team, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to present this evening. First, I'd like to start by introducing the project team. From Needham Bank, we have Charles Steele and Paul Totino. From Bowler Engineering, we have Bill Goebel and Matthew Merva. From MDM Transportation Consultants, we have Robert Michaud. From the Element Group, we have Jeffrey Ferris. Together with me from Paramount Partners, my colleague Richard Pila. And from the law firm of Bowditch and Dewey, Catherine Garahan. While each individual consultant will go into great detail about their individual disciplines within the project, I'd first like to just do a brief overview of what we're proposing. I hope it is evident with the materials that we've submitted that we have, the project team and the bank specifically, has made every effort possible to reach out to and solicit comment from residents, business owners, as well as town officials when compiling this information that we're submitting this evening. And we've taken all sincere steps to provide a proposal that is worthy of the site. The property is located at 41 Front Street, and this property has been owned for close to 100 years by the Ray and Bianchi family, which Needham Bank intends to lease from. Since the mid-1950s, the property has been operated by tenants of the owner, and for more than 40 years of that time as a bank branch. The structure located on the property was constructed by Framingham National Bank in about 1956 and was used as a bank with a drive-through facility by that bank and later by Shawmut Bank until about the 1990s. The applicant intends to locate the proposed use on the property while maintaining and improving the historic layout of the site. These improvements include substantially renovating the interior structure while maintaining the existing building's architecture and footprint with small additions on the northwest and southwest sides of the structure. We also propose upgrades to exterior features of the structure, which include elements reflecting the town's history and incorporating materials and features of historic surrounding structures. We propose to restore the structure's pre-existing drive-up window and install an external ATM machine, as well as construct a new ADA-compliant sidewalk to connect the existing sidewalk at Front Street to the proposed entranceway, and construct 3 concrete sidewalks at Front Street, connecting the sidewalk surrounding the municipal parking area to the property. The applicant also is proposing signage, a bike rack, as well as significant landscape and lighting improvements as well. At this time, I'd like to invite Charles Steele from Needham Bank to give a brief statement about the bank. Thank you.
And on behalf of Needham Bank, we appreciate the opportunity to present to the planning board tonight. Needham Bank is a well-capitalized mutual bank, meaning that we are owned by our depositors, not stockholders. Of the 148 community banks in Massachusetts, we're in the top 25 in total assets, with a little over $1.45 billion in assets as of May 31st, 2014. We are community-oriented. We like to shop local. We hope people will bank local. We give back to the communities that bank with us. We are the leading residential construction lender in Metro West. Why Ashland? We currently have 5 branch offices. Our main office in Needham, branches in Dedham, Westwood, Medfield, and Wellesley. We identified a need for additional branches to gather deposits to fund our loan growth, and this is a natural expansion from our existing base westward along or between routes 135 and 109. In addition to Ashland, we are working on a branch at the intersection of Route 109 and 115 in Millis. We also have plans for a branch in Dover, and I've heard rumors that we are planning a branch in Natick. We looked at multiple sites on West Union Street, Route 135, Pond Street, Route 136, but 41 Front Street stood out because it had obviously been a bank and it was in the center of town. The Central Business District is a great place to be, and all our other offices are similarly situated. We have a number of customers already in Ashland, and an increasing number of our employees live in Ashland. Indeed, Dave Shorey, one of our senior commercial lenders, is a 29-year resident of the town. The drive-through window is critical. It is an essential convenience factor for parents with small children in the car and others who have difficulty getting out of a car and walking into a bank branch. The building originally had a drive-through window. Every other bank in town has a drive-through window. Most other banks in the Metro West area have drive-through windows in their downtown offices, unless they're locked between buildings on either side. While we've drawn up a site plan showing 5 cars stacked, the truth is that at our other well-established branches, we never have more than 2 cars waiting. Transactions have been driven out of the branch environment by debit cards and smartphones. If I want to make a deposit of a check to my Needham Bank account, I just take a picture of it on my smartphone and it's electronically accepted. If I want cash from the bank account, I get cash back when I purchase my groceries at the grocery store. We think the project will have a positive fiscal impact for Ashland. The bank's improvements to the existing structure will likely increase the building's assessed value and taxes. Bank employees and customers frequenting the bank will support local businesses, such as restaurants, florists, barbers, salons, etc. As a community bank, we support a lot of civic activities, such as local historical societies, business associations, and we have supported many community endeavors, such as new playing fields, town hall reservations, etc. Very frequently, we are the main sponsor of cultural activities in the towns where we have our branch offices. Preliminary discussions have been very favorable, but we recognize there are some people who would rather see the building leveled and the parking lot eliminated. We think we can offer a more attractive option for improving the Central Business District with a renovated bank building, attractive landscaping, pedestrian accessibility, and quintessential street lighting to reflect positively on the Central Business District. Needham Bank is leasing the property from Fermo Bianchi and his sister Nancy Bianchi Miller, whose family has owned the property for generations. And I would like to ask Mr. Bianchi to say a few words about the property. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Fermo Bianchi, and along with my sister Nancy, we are the owners of the property at 41 Front Street. This property has been owned by our family since 1920, when it was purchased by our grandfather, Albert H. Ray, for the purpose of viewing the comings and goings at the train station from his business across the street at 44 Front Street, formerly Dave's TV. As well as founding and operating Ray Brothers, Albert was a successful inventor, a member of the Ashland Board of Registrars, town clerk, town moderator, state rep, and then a state senator. The town of Ashland is still entitled to a $2,200 annual payment from the Commonwealth for damages incurred by construction of the Sudbury Reservoir, the result of a bill drafted and passed by Albert. In 1954, the Framingham National Bank leased the property at 41 Front Street and constructed a bank branch, which provided the relatively new concept of community banking with in-store as well as drive-up banking. The 70s and 80s brought mergers and acquisitions to the banking industry, and the branch became the Community National Bank and then the Shawmut Bank. Always offering dog biscuits and lollipops at the drive-up. In 1999, Fleet Bank bought Shawmut and closed the branch at 41 Front Street, since Fleet already had a branch across the street. Our family independently and through brokers solicited multiple banks as possible tenants, but the trend was for banks to consolidate and close branches and move away from community-oriented banking. Hence, we leased to Essential Salon and Carissa's Barbershop from 1999 to this past March. Over the years, multiple inquiries have been made asking if we would sell this property, but we have declined all offers because of the historical and sentimental aspect of this property to our family. In October of 2013, after just completing interior upgrades and landscaping to induce our tenant to renew his lease, Paramount Partners inquired as to whether we would consider either selling or leasing the property to be used as a bank branch. Wanting to retain ownership of the property, we have agreed to a lease with Needham Bank. We request that the planning board look favorably on this site plan so that after 15 years of retail use, this property will once again be home to a community bank that will modernize the property and draw residents to the downtown area with services that include locally issued mortgages and loans, as well as free checking. Needham Bank will be a healthy addition to the Ashland community and a business which will offer support to many local activities and programs. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, I'm Catherine Garahan from the law firm of Bowditch and Dewey. The property contains about 1/4 acre with frontage on Front Street and is located in the downtown CD zoning district and, as the town planner pointed out, the Ashland Downtown District Sub-Area A Overlay District. I want to thank the town planner for his very thoughtful words and also just offer one slightly different interpretation of the application of the zoning districts, which was provided to us from the building commissioner, and that, as according to the building commissioner, the zoning bylaw regulations for the CD district apply to the project rather than the ADD overlay because the project has no no residential component and is entirely commercial. We have a letter from the building commissioner which instructed us on this distinction, which is in your application packets with the site plan review application as Exhibit D. As has been stated, the property contains the existing structure, which was built in the 1950s as a bank branch, which is oriented towards Main Street. The site abuts town land containing the downtown municipal parking area used by visitors to area businesses and town services such as the library. According to the table of use regulations set forth in section 3.1 of the bylaw, in the CD district, a bank is allowed as of right and a drive-through facility is permitted by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. An additional notice that Section 5.1.1 of the bylaw exempts the CD district from the parking regulations of the bylaw. The applicant seeks to redevelop the property for use as a bank branch, a use which, for which the structure in the property was built, with the reintroduction of the drive-through use. The applicant seeks site plan approval and grant of a special permit for signs from the planning board. The applicant went to design review committee earlier this week, as is required by section 9.3.1 of the bylaw, because the property is a downtown property. A hearing, the other permitting from the town, which the applicant seeks, includes a special permit for drive-through use as stated from the ZBA. The hearing for that permit opened on May 28th and has been continued until June 25th. A stormwater management permit, an application for which was filed on May 22nd, with a hearing scheduled with the Concom, which opened earlier this week on June 9th. The applicant also met with technical review, town staff for technical review on May 29th. And as an update to your applications, we have submitted, and I think it's been distributed to you, a photometric sheet, which was discussed with design review earlier this week. The bank has made every effort to comply with the bylaw criteria in planning and designing the project. The bank's proposal took in consideration the criteria established under section 9.4.6 through 9.4.11 of the bylaw for site plan review, including the requirements set out in section 9.4.6, building design and coordination of the structure with nearby structures, as set out in 9.4.7 and 9.4.11, maximizing the convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement on the site, minimizing curb cuts and other traffic matters as set out in section 9.4.8, prevention of groundwater pollution and drainage requirements set forth in section 9.4.9, landscaping set forth in section 9.4.10, as well as the design review criteria set out in section 9.6.7 for landscape, building orientation, open space, heritage, and pedestrian access. Consultants will walk through the proposal more specifically. The applicant has provided a traffic study as part of the application, and also understands the board will hire peer review for traffic as well as for engineering for the project. The special permit for signs relates to the cupola signs, which the town planner described, as well as directional signs on Front Street. The proposed pylon sign and the building signs comply with the bylaw as set out in sections 5.3.13.3 and 5.3.13.2 and need no relief. The directional signs themselves would be exempt from the bylaw's sign requirement pursuant to section 5.3.2, except for the fact that they are proposed to include the bank's logo, which is considered advertising by the bylaw and would remove them from the exemption. However, the bank hopes to be able to include the logo for a few reasons. Primarily, it will help differentiate for traffic what is the bank's driveway as opposed to what is the abutting driveway for the municipal parking area. Let's see. The bank has made every effort to work collaboratively with the town officials to get input into the design. Changes to the bank's initial concept were made, including addition of dormers after informal feedback was obtained from Mr. McKelvey of the Design Review Committee prior to filing the application. Improvements are proposed to include some off-site features benefiting town property at the adjacent parking area, including installing light poles within landscaping adjacent to the walkway along surrounding municipal parking, constructing 4 new striped parking spaces, and curbing on the municipal parking lot, installing a new sod lawn, and connecting walkways on the property that straddles the property line, and providing transition curbings and ramps on Front Street. At this point, if it pleases the board, we're prepared to move on to consultant presentations.
Good evening. My name is Bill Goebel with Bowler Engineering. We prepared the plans that are before you this evening. And I have a rendered version of the site plan to my left, which is basically the same plan that's in your package with just the landscaping overlaid on it, some color added to it. Just to take you for a walk through the site. I think everybody's familiar with the location, obviously, the history of it. That's the tough part about having an experienced team like this before me. A lot of material gets covered that I might present normally, but the plan as we look at it has Front Street running left to right at the top of the sheet. The existing building, as discussed, is being maintained with just some small additions on the northwest and southwest facade. The existing site's generally in a state of disrepair as far as the parking lot and the pavement goes. If you've driven through there, there's significant potholes. The pavement is just tired in the site. It just needs some upgrades in certain areas, and we've got a great opportunity to really bring it back to life here. The traffic patterns on the site right now, there's 2 curb cuts from Front Street that are basically uncontrolled. There's no signage to delineate the ingresses or egress or one-way circulation, which is ultimately what we're proposing. And there's also a cut-through to the community parking to the rear. As far as the proposed improvements go, the intent is to create a one-way circulation pattern with the one entrance drive to the east of the site. We're reducing the driveways in width to help control the traffic patterns better from what's out there right now. They're a little bit wider and again, more uncontrolled. What we'd like to do is bring a little bit more organized traffic patterns to the site. So creating the one-way entrance to the site, we have 6 parking spaces that we'll be providing, including a handicapped parking space, an ADA accessible space that includes a route from the street coming up towards that space and then the continued ADA route to the building entrance on our site. The drive-through is located on the eastern or northeast portion of the building, and on the plan that you're looking at, that's generally represented by that tan area, which is a concrete mat that will be pouring there. There's some minor adjustments to the grade in that area just to bring it up to the proper grade for the construction of the drive-through window. And again, if you go out there today, there's an existing drop box there from the prior bank use along that same wall that you would see. The stacking, again, just follows in a clockwise position against the curb line to the rear of the property, and the traffic will be exiting out to Front Street, just continuing that same one-direction path. There's significant opportunities for landscaping improvements on the site, and I'll let our landscape architect address that. We're also providing more definition for the general parking on the site. There's no curbing or delineation of parking spaces out there right now, so this site will look like a new site with full curbing, striping throughout the parking lot and the site to define the circulation patterns, as well as traffic signage, stop signs, one-way signs, enter signs, just to help further define the traffic patterns. We're replacing and expanding a lot of the sidewalk in the area. We're closing the cut-through to the public parking in the rear and constructing sidewalk, which is a little bit covered here by the tree that we have on our landscape plan. But where the driveway is now, we're replacing that with a full-height curb and sidewalk there to continue the sidewalk that runs along the community parking area. And that gives us the opportunity to add 4 parking spaces beyond the 6 that we're already providing on our site in that public parking area. We're replacing the sidewalks and cleaning them up around the entrance to the site and also through the community parking area all the way out to Front Street. Just as we modify those driveways and reduce the width of those driveways, it dictated the need to clean up the sidewalks at the entrance from the public parking onto Front Street. So we just wanted to kind of complete that path there and clean that up and not make it too patchworked. As far as the utilities go and infrastructure, there's no change to the utilities proposed. There's adequate utilities, sewer, water, gas, electric. One item is there's electric coming to the site by overhead right now, strung from a pole towards the center of the building. We're going to be bringing that underground, which from an aesthetic standpoint, I think cleans things up for the site. Stormwater management, we were with the Concom earlier this week, and we're proposing a series of improvements after working with staff and with the agent, including providing some infiltration from roof runoff opportunities. We're collecting some of the roof in downspouts and connecting it directly to the drainage system and introducing an opportunity for infiltration from that, as well as directing some of the runoff from sidewalk and paved areas to the landscaped areas, trying to incorporate some further infiltration and LID improvements there. That's basically the scope of the site improvements. The lighting that was discussed earlier also we'll get into with our architect in a couple of minutes. But overall, the site complies fully with the zoning requirements relative to the bulk requirements here. I think it's going to be a significant improvement to the traffic circulation patterns on site and in the area. We're eliminating a cut through and creating additional parking not only on our site but in the community parking lot, and providing a significantly enhanced landscape package, which I think all lends towards a great improvement for this site compared to what you have out there today. With that, if there's no questions, I'll turn it over to our landscape architect at this time. Great.
Thank you, Bill. I'm Matt Merva with Bowler Engineering, the landscape architect for this project. Bill's mentioned a couple of the key features of the site that really allow us to enhance the landscape, and I'll just walk through those really quickly. Because of the narrowing of the curb cuts that Bill mentioned, we are able to provide a greater green frontage along the back of that sidewalk, so it actually increases the landscape space adjacent to the Front Street sidewalks. And with the elimination of the cut-through between the bank parking and the municipal parking, we're able to create a green screen between those two separate parking areas to greater buffer the two paved areas in that zone. In terms of the plants themselves, we're proposing 57 evergreen shrubs. We're proposing 21 deciduous shrubs. We've got 4 new trees, plus we're maintaining one of the existing trees out there. And then we're proposing over 1,100 ground covers and perennials to fill out the beds. As part of the DRB's initial comments, we've sought to eliminate the exposed mulch bed areas that you would see in favor of ground covers that would actually fill in those beds and create a thick green carpet. The landscaping's been designed to create a year-round interest. There's plenty of evergreen material, as well as material that will flower throughout the various seasons as you move from spring through fall. As Bill mentioned, we've also brought the electrical wires underground. You'll also notice on the site plan we don't have an exterior dumpster pad, so there's really nothing to screen in terms of an unsightly use there, because all of that will be handled internally and with trash collection and pickup. Essentially, that concludes the improvements to the landscaping. As Bill mentioned, we've provided for drainage of the sidewalks inwards towards these landscape beds to try to capture that stormwater and infiltrate it rather than have that run off onto the asphalt paving and into the storm system. So we are using those as sort of a low impact device to collect stormwater. If there are no other questions, I'll turn it over to Bob Michaud. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. For the record, Robert Michaud, a principal with MDM Transportation Consultants based in Marlborough, Massachusetts. What I'd like to do is really place some context on the site and where we began our evaluation of impact of this project. As the board is aware, the site, it really is in the commercial downtown area, and you can see the proximity of the site to the municipal parking area. In this particular aerial diagram provides a good snapshot, a representative snapshot of the type of parking activity that currently occurs not only on the site itself, but in that lot. It's not uncommon to find about 40 parked vehicles. Just this evening, for instance, there were about 10 vehicles or so parked in this corner. There were 2 cars on the site. there were a number of cars parked proximate to where the library is, and of course the Kelly's Restaurant. And what's interesting about this context is that you'll see people parked in the municipal lot in a way that is proximate to where they'd like to go, to which business or institutional use they'd like to visit. For instance, tonight, you'd see most parking located in the easterly portion of that lot because the Desire line, the connection from that parking to Kelly's Restaurant, is fairly direct. And likewise, when the library's open, you'll see that there's a concentration of parking activity along that Desire line as well. What's interesting about the site is that it's proximate to a very well frequented restaurant. I refer to it as Mel's at Sunnyside, Talby's Florist, and it's not uncommon as a result of the proximity of this site to have folks parked in this area and to have the Desire line, I call it, from the municipal lot or perhaps even the site to the crosswalk here to go to the Sunnyside, to go to Talby's Restaurant. So that places some context for how we would like to plan the site from a transportation perspective, understanding that by today's definition, you've got a lot going on at the site. You've got people parking at the site. You've got people driving through the site through a fairly central location that connects to the municipal lot. And you've got what I call, a bad mix between pedestrians and vehicles in the central portion of that site without any delineation or separation. And in fact, parking is not very well delineated either. So we'll speak to how the site plan, as Bowler had identified, how it improves those conditions, reduces conflict points, provides a better pedestrian environment, and a more coherent circulation pattern. All right, those are the goals and objectives of the site planning process and the traffic process. Beyond those elements, we have prepared a traffic impact and access study. It's been prepared to an industry standard. It will be subject to peer review. It looks not only at the existing baseline traffic conditions at the property, the municipal lot entrances, it also looks at the signalized operation at Main Street. Documents existing patterns and operations. We look 5 years into the future. We anticipate there'll be some growth independent of this particular project that involves reoccupancy of currently vacant space along Main Street in particular, as well as normal background growth trends, all of which we've accounted for in the traffic report. And then using that as a basis, evaluates the change in traffic that is expected to occur as a result of a bank use and identifies how much additional delay and impact that relates to, not only at the signal but at the driveways serving the facility. The proposed use is a bank use, some 1,400 square feet. It's not a large bank. It's a community bank. It has the same elements as most banks do these days. It has in-bank transaction capability, so if you want to go in and talk to a loan officer or make a deposit, old-fashioned deposit or withdrawal, you can do that. But it has the added benefit, as most banks do these days, of having the convenience of a drive-through. And we know that a bank, in this bank in particular, about a third of its transactions go through the drive-through. And it's not an uncommon statistic. In the dozens of banks that I've worked on in the course of my career, it's not uncommon to have between 20 and 30% of transactions generated through the window as a function of convenience. But the use as a bank is also unique because, unlike many commercial entities, it is not a high traffic generator. It's not in the same league or category as high turnover sit-down or drive-through food venues. It's not in any way similar to a Dunkin' Donuts or a coffee shop. These are moderate generating facilities, and in context of this particular site at only 1,400 square feet, as a community bank, we expect that it will also generate moderate levels of activity. So what are those levels? We have a source called Institute of Transportation Engineers, ITE Trip Generation Manual, which would prescribe for various land uses how much traffic would be generated for various land uses. In this particular case, we apply those industry standards We also have, by the way, a point of reference from the transaction information provided to us from the bank, from Needham, to make sure that those industry standard rates are appropriate and reasonable and reflect the nature of their business, and they do. So let's take a snapshot in time. Let's look at the commuter peak hours, and we'll look at a weekend as well. We know that the bank activity is likely to be at its highest level during the weekday afternoon and evening periods during weekdays, and in the middays on Saturdays. Not uncommon for banks. So here's a snapshot of a weekday evening peak hour. This is the commuter peak hour. We know that during that period of time that the bank use would generate on the order of between 17, maybe 20 transactions over the course of an entire hour, and that about a third of those transactions would be window related as opposed to in-bank related. We also know that banks are facilities of convenience for many people who, on their way home from work, may need to go to the grocery store and stop by the ATM for money, or it's what we call a linked trip, convenience-based linked trip. We know that for bank uses that linked trip, or what is otherwise known as a pass-by trip in this case, represents about 25% or more of the number of transactions that happen. So of the 17 transactions that would occur in this weekday evening scenario, roughly 5, perhaps 6 of those transactions would be through the window. About 10 to 12 of those would be in the bank itself. And of all of those transactions, we could expect that on the order of 6 to 8 of those would be by people who happen to be driving by this location anyway. So modest traffic generating use. Saturdays also reflect that same type of trend, very similar volumes. How do those volumes then get to or from the facility, and what is the distribution of those trips? Well, we know based on existing travel patterns that are documented in this traffic report, volumes that we've manually counted in spring of this year, that 8 out of the 10 transactions that are drawn to this bank will be coming from the Main Street quarter, and that the balance of those, somewhere around 15% or so, will be oriented to and from the Front Street quarter. So the vast majority of folks who want to bank here are going to be coming from the Main Street quarter and returning to the Main Street quarter, 80% we're estimating. If you apply the 80% and the 15 to 20% on local Front Street roadways, what that means is that during this particular hour of the day, the weekday evening peak hour, that we could expect a trip increase of less than 10 vehicles on Main Street, either north or south of where the signal is located. Very modest increase. To put some context on that, that signal today accommodates between 1,500 and 2,000 vehicles per hour during the commuter peak hour. So the level of trip increase associated with a bank use at that location represents a very small percentage of what you see happening today. And in fact would fall within the day-to-day fluctuation in traffic that we know occurs on Main Street and other local roadways in this area. So it's the type of increase that will not have a perceptible change in operation at that location, at that signal. We have prepared a level of service analysis that quantifies how that signal works, as well as how the driveways currently work and how they are expected to work in the future once the bank, if it's approved, is operating at its fullest capacity. And we know that the signal, but for the occasional train that goes through, and you've heard a few of them tonight, that it works quite well. It works at a high level. On a letter grade rating level, ranging from A, which is minimal delay, to F, which is very long delays, this signal works at a B. And in an urban environment, a downtown context, it is the goal of transportation designers, planners, engineers to achieve at least a level of service D or better operation. We're well above that standard. So this signal does not in any way create an impediment to traffic and will certainly not be materially affected. Its operations won't change as a result of what's being proposed based on these types of volume increases. And that's all documented in great detail in this report. We know that there's ample capacity. We know that this is a lower generating, or moderate generating use. We also know that it's far enough away from the signal that it is not within what we call the influence area of the signal. It's not influenced by vehicle queues, for instance, that from time to time occur on the Front Street approach to the signal. We know that those queues vary between 2 and 4 vehicles by observation as well as analysis. We know that the driveway to the municipal lot and the exit driveway that's being proposed for the facility are far enough away from the signal that it will not be negatively influenced by how that signal functions. And where I began the discussion, as we focus on the site itself, we've carefully worked with the site civil engineers here to identify a series of elements that represent enhancements and benefits over what currently exists and has historically existed at this property. First and foremost, the closure of the central connection to the municipal lot. It's not uncommon for folks to park in the municipal lot or the site to walk to Sunnyside. At the same time, people are coming in either driveway to park in undefined areas. So there's not a very good relationship, if you will, between the municipal lot and the commercial uses on the north side of Front Street. Closure of that driveway eliminates that issue. It eliminates the possibility of having vehicles cross or recross through the central portion of the site to the municipal lot. It has the added benefit of actually enhancing the parking capacity within the municipal lot by 4 spaces. From a pedestrian perspective, I spoke about desire lines. To the extent the municipal lot is being used in this vicinity for proximity to Sunnyside or Talvey's Florist, for instance, this plan now incorporates an ADA compliant connection to a sidewalk into the property in alignment with those commercial uses that are most likely to be frequented by people who do park in this section of the municipal lot, by an ADA compliant crosswalk to another sidewalk that connects to the Front Street sidewalk system. There's a crosswalk today that exists at Concord Street. So the desire line, if you're parking in this portion of the municipal lot to those commercial uses, it will be through the site as it is today, but it will be much better defined. It will be ADA compliant, and it will have the added benefit of having the elimination of pass and repass of vehicles in that central section. As it relates to the drive-through facility, it's our experience, having worked on many bank projects, following industry standards, looking at empirical evidence and information, that the drive-through transaction on average is going to be about a 2-minute or less transaction on average. We know that 30% of the business of a bank will be drive-through. That equates to about 6 to 8 transactions over the course of an entire hour. We know that there is not a high likelihood that there will be any more than 1 to 2 vehicles in a queue under those conditions. You can look across the street to Santander Bank. You could stand there at lunchtime, in the morning, at night. I did, every time I'm in this area, I look at what's happening there. You won't see more than 1 or 2 cars parked in those lanes. The capacity for this lane, for this drive-through, nevertheless, is 5 vehicles. 5 vehicles before you come into any influence of where parking is to be provided within the property. It's more than the bank needs, but it's shown illustratively to demonstrate that should there be some occasion where there's a couple of cars that show up at the same time, and there's a run on the ATM machine for some reason, that there is capacity to accommodate any regular, normal fluctuation that might occur. The crosswalk itself is very visible. Its sight lines are very visible to and from every portion of this property. It is designed not only as a marked crossing, but in a way that it's ADA compliant. It is more likely that if you park in the municipal lot and walk to any of the businesses in this area, that you'll see more traffic in the aisles in the municipal parking lot than you will in the aisles where the drive-through facility in this particular case. Right? So the likelihood of there being some inordinate amount of conflict, we'll call it, between a car and a pedestrian just doesn't exist here on the basis that it's a moderate traffic generator. 17 transactions per hour. That's one transaction every 3 to 4 minutes. A vehicle coming into the site every 3 to 4 minutes. The likelihood as a pedestrian that you'll come into a queue or will have to wait for some amount of time for a clear gap doesn't exist at that kind of traffic generation. So we're comfortable that it meets the desire line standard, that it's very clearly visible, and that it's placed in context of a low generating traffic use. Regarding circulation, as Bill had mentioned earlier, today it's a bit of a free-for-all to get in and out of here. There'll be a definition of curbs that takes what is today a visual 80-foot opening. It's going to reduce the visual nature of what that curb cut looks like. Right? It's going to look like it's 35 feet wide, not 80. It's going to have appropriate signing on the driveway that clearly indicates this is a one-way, do not enter situation. And it will convert what is today a full-access driveway on the easterly side to an enter-only with appropriate signing and a reduction of the paved width to give a clear signal that this is, in fact, an entry driveway. And finally, as it relates to parking, there are 6 parking spaces being proposed here. There are 4 additional spaces being provided in the municipal lot. It's a total of 10 spaces that are being created as a function of this development, of this project. We know that, based on industry standards, that the 6 spaces on the site is adequate to support the needs of both employees and in-store banking commercial customers. We have the added benefit of 4. We've had questions, well, is it possible that someone might park in the municipal lot to bank? Certainly. And it's also possible that someone might park in the municipal lot to go to breakfast or to go to the consignment shop or go to the restaurant or any other use along this portion of Front Street. It's the same standard that's being held for the bank, and we would expect that the proximity of the bank represents a benefit to folks who might need money on the way to breakfast and things like that. So our conclusion is that this is a low traffic generating use. It has ample capacity. It will not unduly influence or create impediments or impacts to area roadways, and it is a vast improvement both from a safety and operating perspective for both motor vehicles and pedestrians. On that basis, I'll take any questions now or later at the board's pleasure.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Ferris. I'm with the Element Group. We're the project designers. And, I'd like to walk you through the building design and the signage design as well. Initially, we had met with the town early in the process a few months ago, and informal meeting and a couple other subsequent meetings, and we were encouraged to design a building that fit into the the historic context of the downtown area, and we respected that very much. The branches that Needham Bank currently has are very traditional in their appearance and design, so the architecture that they project fits in well with the intent downtown here. The buildings we looked at for inspiration were the public house, the library, the town hall, and a couple other buildings. There's a church across the street as well, so there's a nice dialogue of historic buildings to draw from. There's a variety of styles, and we sought to design a building that would fit in and work with those structures. And we drew a little bit from Needham Bank's current architecture, as I mentioned, some of the materials, architectural features, classically designed features, brick, pilasters, arched windows, those types of things. And we sought to see how they could fit into the new design. And luckily, the structure as it is today is a kind of quintessential New England form. It's the traditional Cape Cod structure, and so it seemed to lend itself well to conversion to a nice small community bank. And the location, as everyone has talked about, is it's good for a downtown village use. So the put both these up here at the same time. We have two proposed renderings of the structure. One is taken from the south side, southwest side, the other from the northwest side. This is the southwest side, approaching it from the railroad tracks, and the other side is the Front Street side. And what we looked to do was utilize the basic structure. There's a glass vestibule on the existing building currently on the western edge, western end. We're proposing to remove that and then redo the entry on the south side as well. But basically keep the two main structures of the building, the two gable, the main gable structure and the existing wing. On the west side, we're proposing to come out a couple feet to help us fit a couple of offices in there. The building's about 1,500 square feet or so, so we need a little extra square footage there. And we sought to also incorporate some of the detailing and fenestration patterns, things like that, in the overall structure. The entrance piece was inspired by the notion of maybe adding a clock and combining it with the arched entrances drawn from the arched windows at Needham Bank's headquarters to create sort of a unique identifier and create a piece that would have dialogue in this area with the rest of the historic buildings. And at the urging of the Design Review Board, we've studied the addition of dormers, which we think work well, and that they help break up the larger roof plane. And this is the cupola, proposed cupola, which we'll talk about in the signage package. And it's a four-sided, externally lit cupola with the logo on glass. The materials of the building are consistent with traditional New England materials. We have some brick. We utilize brick in the areas that we're doing new construction on the entrance and on the west side where we could. It wasn't practical to add brick on the on the other portions of the building where we would have to pour additional foundation support for it. So there we utilized traditional clapboard materials, hardy plank trim and clapboards. And then we've also utilized the faux slate roofing, which has a simulated slate appearance to it. And we've also utilized on the signage, all the exterior signs, the gooseneck type lighting, which is traditional and consistent with some of the site pole lighting as well, to begin to start a kind of a consistency of look there. All the windows are proposed to be the traditional type, authentic divided or simulated divided lights with mullions on the outside and inside. And so we're really attempted to create a structure here that speaks to the historic nature of the buildings in town and try to harmonize with those. On the north side of the building, we carried the dormers to that roof plane as well. The existing overhang of the building, we're proposing to raise about 12 inches or so for a little more clearance. There's some additional signage on the north side there underneath the eave. There is a dormer. The dormers on the wing are slightly smaller for proportional reasons on both sides of the building, on the north and south. And the north side of the building that rendering illustrates the ATM location, which is on the far right where the car is about to pull up. Adjacent between that and the drive-up window, we're proposing a historic graphic panel, triptych it's called. It could be an image that is important to the town, and at night it would be illuminated through the overhead lights in that soffit, the recessed lighting in there. And it could be an image that we would work with the town on to help just tie everything together. And then on the further to the right is the drive-up transaction window. I just want to talk about the entrance piece for a moment. We'd had some discussions early on about the clock, and so we sought to integrate that into the architecture. Needham Bank has clocks on every single one of their branches, either on the wall or on a signpost on site. So it was a nice connection to be able to create this piece architecturally, but place the clock in a secondary location. We were aware of the clock as you cross the railroad tracks. There's a primary clock there, which is dominant. We didn't want to have a clock on a pole outside here competing, or even on the face of the building. So we thought it was a nice tie-in to and nod to the clock history, to take a clock and put it on a recessed wall in the upper portion of the entryway there. So it could be lit at night, but it would be, you wouldn't see it from all sides. It would be pushed back a few feet. So it would have a secondary purpose and visual. If there's any questions on the architecture design of the building, I'll move to the signage.
Keep going.
Good. Yeah. This is a sign designation plan. It shows the proposed signage locations. This is the site plan, obviously, with the building. These are the four dots there represent the four sides of the cupola sign. The dot here, B1A, is the sign, the wall-mounted sign on the west side of the building. B1B is the wall-mounted side on the north side of the building, on the drive-up. P1 is a pylon sign on Front Street. And the D-series signs, these D2 and D1, are the smaller directional signs that were alluded to earlier. And I think that covers that. This is the front elevation of the building that shows the cupola sign. Again, this is, the sign would be on glass, vinyl on glass, externally lit with, proposing just an LED grazer, which would light the face of each side of the cupola. So there would be, it would be in the eave, the soffit, if you will, up above, and it would just graze the surface. This is the west side of the building. This illustrates the proposed sign panel and lighting. We sought to follow the town regulations and provide external lighting, and trying to follow in a traditional design of the light fixture itself. The sign panels are, wood or wood-like material, simple trim, a nice trim around them with wood-cut or other material letters and logo on them. So on the west side, what is visible is the wall sign and the logo sign, the short end of the cupola, which has only the logo on it. On the north side of the building, again, the cupola is the same as it is on the south side of the building. And here's the wall sign, which is similar to the one on the west side. However, that would be lit from the recessed lighting in the drive-up canopy eave. Taking it down. And then on the east side of the building, we have the, it's the opposite end of the cupola. And again, those are externally lit. And then these are diagrams of the directional signs, and they are placed at either entrance. This is at the, there would be a sign on each side of the entrance. The sizes within the directional signage code, it's the logo that we're seeking relief on. And then on the, this is the exit side. So exit only would project outwards. Thank you to customers leaving the bank, again with the logo. And these signs, these particular signs, and this sign, the pylon sign, the intent is to do these out of white metal or white wood posts so that they tie into the white trim and pilasters of the architecture of the building, you know, kind of the verticals that we've started to create there. So the same type of top trim, so there's some type of continuity in terms of detail. This is the pylon sign out on Front Street. Fairly simple. The sign is within the size requirements. It's a white sign, and we're proposing that it's downlit, so we're not throwing light upwards. And these fixtures would be, this is the only exterior sign light that would be white, so, because it's part of this larger package. So the others would be black to tie into the proposed fixtures on the site. That's it. Questions?
Let's keep going. Any more presentation? Thank you. All right, we're trying to manage time tonight because we've got somebody else we had to push off. We'd go to about quarter past. So what I want to try to do tonight, since we got a bunch of people here that I'm sure have a lot to say, we've got design review. We were hoping could come prepared, shared with what you guys have gone through, maybe the recommendations you handed to them. If you could maybe just key and write just on what the recommendations were, maybe key highlights. If one of you guys wanted to come up, that'd be great. Thanks, Pat. Bend that mic that way.
Overall, the Design Review Committee thinks that the site and the building was treated very nicely. We agree primarily with all the decisions that were made on landscaping, materials of the building, the dormers, but a couple of things that came out of the meeting that we were sort of torn on happened to be the drive-through, the front entrance options, and the cupola. Cupola is the feature that sits on the very top of the roof. What we had asked Needham Bank to deliver to us prior to this meeting so that we could sort of discuss it tonight is one was to look at the front entrance component, the entry that faces the municipal parking lot, and treat it with like a traditional gabled roof entrance that ties into the architecture of the building itself versus the ornamental curved roof structure. We were sort of having a little bit of a problem with the overall scale of the curved structure. We had asked that it be proportioned down a little bit so that it wasn't so large and overbearing on the building. And again, you know, we wanted to see a different cupola because we knew the cupola was going to have issues with the signage on it. We believe that the schemes that they have sent us for discussion only are better options than what you have in front of you. In particularly, the design of choice currently with the DRC, which only includes 2 members of our 5-member team, so we do not have an official vote on which scheme to move forward on, but currently Sarah Hines and I are looking at the gabled end entranceway as the preferred design option, simply because it ties in with the overall architecture of the building. We feel that comparing the two, the gabled end version against the arched roof structure. The arched roof structure, it's cute. It looks very nice. However, it doesn't really fit the style of the architecture for the building. So we believe that gabled end entranceway is better, especially with the redesigned cupola. Part of our discussions about the cupola were to reproportion it. In its current design, it's a little small, it's elongated. It's sort of designed strictly for the branding of the bank to go on it versus relating back to the architecture or scale of the structure itself. This particular cupola is in better proportioning in relationship to the architecture of the roof and the building itself. And again, this has no signage. It has the same architectural style and elements that's carried throughout the building, so it fits seamlessly. We believe currently that this is a much better design. Let's see. The thing about this is, this came around Tuesday night. We asked for these sketches. I got them this afternoon, so they were put together rather hastily. I think it might make sense before anybody makes an official vote or conclusion on the design of the building that perhaps we give Needham Bank another round to further develop the front entry, to include perhaps their branding on the front of the building, to explore proportioning of that front entry as well, and for the entire design review committee to actually review it again. As far as the drive-through goes, we're kind of torn on the drive-through. Some members are against it. We had some town residents come to our meeting who were against the drive-through. However, I believe personally that due to the programming of the building itself being a bank, that a drive-through makes sense. One additional component that came out of the drive-through was the proximity of the ATM machine to the actual teller window itself. The model today with Needham Bank as well as other branch banks is there usually is an ATM machine next to the drive-through window. It's sort of a standard design feature for convenience. It makes sense. However, we're questioning whether or not there is in fact enough room for, if a car were at the ATM, is there enough room for a secondary car that was going to the drive-through window would have enough maneuverability to really get into properly against the drive-through window to make their transaction. So we had asked, or in our report, we're suggesting that perhaps either a second ATM or the elimination of the drive-through ATM be relocated to the front entry vestibule, considering the amount of foot traffic going to and from local restaurants and businesses. If you theorize that people will be parking in the municipal lot. They will be walking. They could easily go into the vestibule to withdraw cash from an ATM versus standing in the drive-through lane. So I can make an argument for having 2 ATMs or 1 at the vestibule. But, you know, we have other members on our design review committee who are against the drive-through. We know it's in with the ZBA. Perhaps at the conclusion or the finalization of whether or not the drive-through proceeds is left with the ZBA. That's all I have. I don't know if you have any comments.
I want to put the site plan back up.
It's on the ground next to Pat. The elevations? Oh, thanks. Pass them out, yeah.
Fancy colors.
Side by side, so it becomes black.
I got you, yeah. Okay, there you go. Okay.
All right. So back to the site plan. I'm one of the people that are opposed to the drive-through. What we talked about is you've got the window is here and the ATM is here. If someone is at the ATM, is there enough room for a car to come up out of the stacking lane, pull in front of the person at the ATM, and transact without some kind of clipping or traffic hassle there? Also, we're trying to encourage walkability in the downtown. There are new studies out that show that like 48% of people want a walkable town experience, and that's just a national study. It's like 10,000 people in it. This is way up from where it used to be. This isn't the 50s anymore. The way we're going with our downtown, we're trying to get people to encourage them to come downtown, park, go to many things. And a drive-through just interrupts that flow. It just says, oh no, stay in your car, it doesn't matter. But, so then there are examples. You go to Concord, there's banks, there's lovely banks without drive-throughs. Downtown Wellesley Co-op, no drive-through there. So that's one issue, whether we want, whether the way we're going with the downtown. I'm also on the downtown committee, alliance committee about, and we sort of also wanted to go toward walkable and not this sort of suburban drive-through concept, particularly right in the downtown. Also, if you get people to park in the regular parking because they're going to other things and they want to use the ATM, if they have to come around here in the back, they're in the middle of the traffic pattern. So it's problematic, I think, to have it there because we have this real conflict between we're getting people to be more pedestrian down there and doing things, and yet we're providing them with this sort of drive-up thing where they've got to go stand amongst the traffic to get their $20 bill for breakfast. So I'm one of the ones that's against it. I know that goes before ZBA. I think that where we got to with the external look of it is pretty good. There's a great big billboard on the roof we really kind of all of us did not like, but this new cupola that we saw today, pretty good. And look, those are they've all fallen down now, but I think the smaller barrel vault concept is okay. We thought that by the time you got it down with the new cupola, that the gable one was less busy because you had you got dormers and dormer cupola. And with the round barrel vault seemed to be too busy, but the gable we thought looked pretty good. I kind of agree if they want to fine tune it, that would be fine. So I'm opposed to this for the traffic and also the design of what we're trying to do with the downtown. Other than that, we like Needham Bank, and I think they're definitely looking at an improvement on the building. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. All right, was there a member of the ARA that wanted to? Thoughts?
Good evening, Enzo Scaloro, Chair of the ARA. I'm going to try to make 3 points very quickly. We heard about trends earlier in banks decades ago. The trends today, as Sarah said, is walkable downtowns and sustainable downtowns. To get that, it means less vehicles in the heart of downtown. This contradicts the vision both of the downtown we have here, but also downtowns in general and trends today. Drive-throughs only complicate that situation. Point two, there are many New England towns that thrive on walkability. They base their success on it. And there are many banks that are very successful in downtown centers without drive-throughs. Sarah mentioned one of them. I heard Needham say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the drive-through is a convenience for a few customers. Convenience does not equal necessity. And I wonder if we should compromise our downtown because of a convenience for a few customers. If we look at Middlesex Bank, which is just down the street, I attend Middlesex Bank, I'm a customer there. You go there on Saturdays, the property size is probably similar in nature. Parking's chaos, queuing is chaos, it's just a mess. So do we want more of that in downtown, the heart of our community? Point three, traffic studies. I don't know where to go with traffic studies. You guys know I have a lot of experience in development. At Pond Street, with the revitalization, we're dealing with bad predictions from traffic consultants. We're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars at the Dunkin' Donuts intersection because traffic consultants gave us bad information. And we're dealing with ramifications. Yet the community raised safety concerns from day one. And it was an angry, angry situation. And you're going to see the same thing here more than likely. Bad predictions. It's almost identical in its nature. About a year and a half ago, I forget the time frame, we had a teenager medevaced out of downtown. It's not appropriate to not deal with traffic management to create an environment where there is zero accidents. One person getting injured is not acceptable, and that's the goal that we should be setting, a standard that we should be setting. And to do that, you have to begin to eliminate vehicles from downtown. One of the ideas is to push parking to the outskirts of downtown. Now, obviously, you can't eliminate traffic through downtown altogether, but you're going to compound it with drive-throughs, especially if drive-throughs happens to be a convenience and not a necessity. Why would we take that risk is beyond me. Traffic studies a little more. Let's look at Cambridge and Boston, where I have a lot of experience. They have the fortunate funding, I guess, to have a traffic department in both towns, both cities. Traffic consultants will go to both of those departments, and oftentimes they'll talk stats. And what will end up happening is that the departments will look at them and say, no, we're not supporting this, and you're not going to do it. And do you know why they say that? The answer is human behavior and logic. They have evidence, if you just look at human behavior and logic, that contradicts the stats from traffic consultants. So I would argue to you and to the BZA, or ZBA, forget about the stats. Go downtown, use logic, common sense, and apply human behavior. If you decide that you want to see traffic studies, they should be done from 9 to 1 on Saturdays, starting when the farmer's market's done. There you get a true nature of what's happening in downtown. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the Downtown Collaborative? Thanks.
Good evening, I'm Andrea Green from the Downtown Collaborative. I am very concerned about this project for a lot of reasons. What I can tell you on the planning board that you may already be aware of is that the public forums that led to the formation of the Downtown Collaborative collected a lot of data from many people in town who told us that their priority for the future of our downtown is to put a town green where this property lies, and then to improve the downtown around that town green. And in doing that, to look forward and to do what is known in planning as placemaking, and to put a place in town where people will gather, they'll be there to be walking, they'll be there to be socializing, to connecting. And in all due respect to the applicant, to the property owners and their desire to cultivate a usable property here, for the bank who has good intentions to be a very good community bank, I don't doubt any of those things. But I think that if you really come into a town and you really appreciate what a town is trying to accomplish now and in 10 years from now and in 20 years from now, then if you really like your community and you want to be a community partner, then what you do is you support the town in the town planning, and you find a way to meet the townspeople's objectives and your own objectives at the same time. So I can tell you that our community forums have produced data that will support what I'm telling you tonight. I think the other issue that I see that's very problematic with this site is that this site, the placement of the building is a 1950s placement of the building and the site. The size of the site worked for a bank at that time. The size of the site has some trouble working for a bank at this time. And I think the biggest problem with the placement of this building is the fact that it flies right in the face of safety for pedestrians and safety for drivers. I see that we're looking at a site plan that shows a very nicely landscaped and beautified site and does the maximum that you can do with that site to make it workable for the bank and the town. But unfortunately, that creates if your own traffic study shows you that the majority of your customers are coming from the Main Street side into your bank, what you're doing is you're giving the exit first when you know your traffic is coming from that direction. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. You're forcing people to make a loop around and come into your bank that way, which puts them closer to Concord Street. And I think one of the things that is problematic with your traffic data to come up with, that this is a safe design, the problem is that you can't just look at averages. You can't just look at national categories for particular types of businesses. You have to look at what's happening in this particular town and what is happening at the peak times of traffic in this particular town, and you have to make sure that every pedestrian and every driver is safe, not just in the average situation, because that does not protect the people of the town. And I don't think that the studies that these assertions are based on are giving us enough information to be able to be very sure that our townspeople are going to be safe, whether in a car or whether walking. And to the point that's been brought up before tonight, you've got your desire line for your crosswalk that goes from your municipal parking lot where people are going to businesses right across from the bank, the restaurant, Sunnyside, the florist, and you're putting your crosswalk right through your drive-through path and right through your parking lot. And that, to me, is not the safest way to design it. If you can find a way to make a crosswalk that does not go through your parking lot and your queue line, that's a lot safer for everybody involved. And as I've said before to this group, it's problematic to have no entrance to the bank on the parking lot side, on the Front Street side, that your entrance is over here, which presumes that if someone parks for the bank and uses a bank space, that they are going to have to walk through the line of the queue, across the parking lot, around the building to the other side. You can't guarantee that if they're disabled, they're mobility challenged, that they are going to be able to get the one handicap space that would be the closest path for them to travel. So I think in those respects, the town really has to be very sure that this is going to be the best way to move forward. And I think the Downtown Collaborative put together a vision for downtown. It reflects the vision of that particular group that was taken from data that came from larger groups of residents and boards around town. And I think that the biggest problem with not meeting the vision for downtown is the fact that this is not as pedestrian-friendly as our townspeople have said that they want. And this is not necessarily my personal view, but this is what we have heard from feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. In interest of time, we've got to wrap up about 1:15. I definitely want to get some public comment in. So if the board's okay with as a whole, just because it was probably more turnout than we expected, and that's a good thing as far as us being able to hear from people. So what I'm hoping is we can do public comment for maybe to about 10 after, so people can be concise with comments, just to give us a little flavor of what you're thinking. I'll make sure I get public comment in the next meeting, assuming we continue, which obviously this is early on. This is the first time we've gotten all this information. So, and hopefully people will come back too. And the board will be able to dig into this over the next couple of weeks too, and come prepared to ask questions too. So if there's public comment, just keep in mind there's probably more people that do want to share. So if you could just be brief and concise, that would be excellent. So yeah, come on up.
Brief and concise, always challenging. I'll do my best. Joel Arbeitman, Woodridge Lane. I'm just going to buzz through these. I'd love to have more time to present them.
Yeah, we'll do more next time.
I'm going to give you a list rather than the substance behind the list. Okay, so point one, in the Design Review Committee meeting the other night, the term for the cupola with the branding on top of it was used as a billboard. I am very proud of Ashland. I don't want to see the word Needham probably up higher than anything else in our downtown at this very key location. So I would hope that we don't have signage and advertising. And I didn't get to see the cupola design, but I'm glad that it's been reworked. The ATM, I think, is a very serious problem in the drive-up area. Whether there's a drive-through or not, I can't imagine what kind of negotiation is going to occur if we have, and we have had, over 1,000 people at a farmer's market, for example, and people go into Sunnyside, especially on the weekend mornings, and having people take advantage of a great opportunity to have an ATM machine conveniently located. But what do? There's one car at the ATM, they stand behind the car or in front of the car waiting to use the ATM, and then there's one or two cars queuing up subsequent to that, and then some more people. Like, are we gonna have people and cars queuing up at the ATM window? I'm just not sure how that gets negotiated. It's a very awkward thing and a dangerous thing. I would much prefer, at a minimum, to put an ATM in either on the part of the municipal lot side of the bank, or there was that vestibule end on the west end that could have held something like that, some other way other than what exists. I won't belabor the point. One of the biggest concerns I have here, and I don't know whether, I'll just request that at some point you take a very careful look at the picture rather than asking it to be put up again. Mm-hmm. But we're trying to communicate that we want to encourage more pedestrian use downtown and less vehicle and driving. And the streetscape, the aesthetics I'm talking about now, of looking at this business from Front Street, which is its location, 41 Front Street, it's all the drive-up stuff. I mean, it doesn't look that nice. They did a beautiful job. I was very impressed with what the architects did on the side of the building facing the municipal parking lot. But I don't know of other buildings downtown that don't face our primary streets, which are Main Street and Front Street. This doesn't face that. And I think unfortunately, I'd like to see them spin the building around and have that beautiful facade facing Front Street, which of course creates issues with the drive-through. But I think from a streetscape and aesthetics point of view, what they've done here is wonderful. It's just not facing the right way. A couple more quick ones. Traffic safety. I'm very concerned with, we had this exact issue with the Algonquin Way and Dunkin' Donuts, and they're still, I know from the 126 forums that have been held, they're very aggressively looking at trying to align Harvard Street over there on 126 with Algonquin because that's safer. Well, take a look at the traffic flow here. We've got people coming out of the bank, and you've got a T intersection coming off Concord Street onto Front Street. And I asked in the ZBA hearing, approximately what the distance is from one exit to the other. If you had conflicting cars turning the same direction, occupying the same space, and it was a mere 25 feet roughly. That was the answer I was given. I haven't measured it. So, you know, that's basically one car length, and the concern is just how safe is that? Would someone exiting the bank have sufficient time to react, you know, sorry about that, to react to negotiate, to have those two drivers negotiate with each other from opposite sides of Front Street? And the last thing I wanted to say is, you know, the applicant a number of times has referred to the convenience of having a drive-through, be it the ATM or the teller window. And they cited specifically, and at least in a previous meeting, that, you know, handicapped accessible and moms with children in the car, that this would be a convenience, which I certainly think it would be. But more and more, banking is moving to online, and those with special needs, who certainly are worthy of being considered and having provision made for them, can certainly take advantage in many cases, and more, with online access to banking. So, you know, it just seems, again, that it's, number one, it's a minimal portion of the population, and it just seems like a bad location for it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, come on up.
Thank you. Ryan Turncliffe, 21 Rossi Lane. I appreciate the applicant's presentations. I do hope that the public will be allowed an hour of comment equal to the applicant at some point. I think there are a number of issues. Personally, I'm not in favor of having another business in the downtown area. I'm fully in agreement that some of the points that have been made about sustainability and walking are okay. I didn't fully appreciate the history of the property, so I do appreciate that perspective, and I can understand the landowner's interest in maintaining that property. I'm not sure that a bank is the right thing for it. Echoing some of Joel's comments around signage, the lighting of the signage was something new. So drivers at night, and we're in New England, so it's dark for a large majority of the year. Those signs will be lit. That will literally be the first thing that people see. Maybe they'll see the fire station's Christmas lights, or maybe the town Christmas lights. But right behind them is going to be a big lit Needham Bank sign. So the addition of the cupola serves no purpose other than to provide additional advertising. I do have also some concerns about traffic, and I would have to agree with the statistical view. So, and one of my issues is that I heard conflicting numbers come out from the traffic presentation. At one point, I heard 80% of traffic will turn left. That's concerning for many of the issues that have been raised. The issue with the drive-through, the point was made that the transaction time is 2 minutes. These people aren't sticking. We've probably all been to drive-throughs, and particularly ATMs. As soon as you get your money, you go. Now, what's nice about the business that was there is that people park, they get out, they walk. And people that get out and walk are cognizant of other people that are getting out and walking. So I think it's important, either with the ATM there or inside. If it's inside, at least they're walking. The other issue is, and it wasn't clear from the presentation, so I apologize if I misheard this, but I think I heard something about a sign that the town would participate in putting an illustration or an image up on. That was very unclear to me, and I'm not sure how and what influence the town would have on that image, if it was on the drive-through side or not. Also, if it was lit or not. So what I'm envisioning, and again, I could be wrong because it wasn't presented thoroughly, was an LED light type of display that has an image. Again, something that's lit at night as you drive down. So I could be misinterpreting what I heard there, so I apologize if I do, but that aspect of it was a little bit concerning to me as well. I can understand from the landowner's perspective that this is probably not going in to turn into a town green if the landowner is not interested in selling the property, and I can respect that. At the same time, I agree with some of the comments that I would ask the planning board to consider what the townspeople want in 5 or 10 years, and not just what the applicant has spent a lot of time and effort to put forward to the town. I may be speaking for myself. I'm a busy father, and I spend a lot of time at work. It's hard to get to a planning board meeting. It's hard to pay attention. I couldn't actually find the documents for this meeting. I mean, I did find them on Google Drive at one point. But I found them on this, and they're kind of hard to see. So, I was with a group of fathers immediately prior to this meeting, and everyone said something about the Dunkin' Donuts. Every single one of them. Look at the mess at Dunkin' Donuts. So I would have to agree that we should think forward. Backlash is hard to deal with because it's already gone forward. It's going to be difficult to change the perception. So I just want to throw that out there, and I hope there'll be additional opportunity to comment once the full plans are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got time for one more comment if somebody wanted to fast his hand up. All right, nobody wants to get cut short, right? Oh, no, we got one more. Yeah, we got it. Okay, come on. And then we've got to provide some direction to the applicant and get our peer review moving and all that. So I'm hoping people come back too next time.
Judith Sala, 29 Meeting House Path. And I just want, and again, I agree with everything that everyone has said about the really good presentation. And there is absolutely no question in my mind that the bank is not a good bank and that they would be good to have here. My concern is where. And I have been on a number of committees. I've been on 2 comprehensive planning committees and created 2 comprehensive plans. I've been when we did the urban renewal plan. I was the head of the CAC, which is the Citizens Advisory Committee. I am currently on the Downtown Collaborative and on the Open Space Committee. So I have, in all of those capacities, we have produced documents, we've gone to the public, and there is a desire to have a downtown, revitalize it, and the king point in the focus is to have a town green, which is a place where people can gather, where there can be a sense of community, and we're working on signage for the downtown, which will give it a separate, distinctive feeling, and that it's not that this isn't a good building. And what I'm hearing is the design's great for being next to a parking lot, but that's not what we want for the future. What we want is a town green. A building right there is not, on the grass, is not helpful to us. It is something that is what we're looking to bring the town forward, to revitalize it, and to give it a whole new impetus, if you will, to bring people in from other areas. It would, if we can go through with that brings townspeople to downtown. It will bring people from other places to downtown, and they can participate in the bank and its business. I'm sure that they will be a good neighbor, but as Andrea has pointed out, that one of the best things that you can do to be a good neighbor is to work with us in what is the town's plan for the future. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay, knowing that we're trying to wrap this up here, here's what I was thinking, just for the night. The applicant has heard from the public and some of the other committees in town. There's probably some things I'm assuming you guys want to revisit, take a look at, and come back. The other suggestion, I guess I have 2 potential options. I was going to say we could begin on peer review, but of course that's going to cost you money, and then if you're making changes in a couple of weeks, then it's peer review again on that plan. So I would think that you would want, from this point, for us to discuss a continued hearing, and then from there you incorporate what you've heard tonight and come back in front of us with that. I think one thing I'd like to see is if you can re-engage on a few of these items with design review, just to see if there's anything you guys could potentially do there, if anything at all. I mean, that's your choice as far as whether you want to.
Just for clarity, are you suggesting that the applicant go back to a design review meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're asking, rather than provide information to the board?
I'm asking you if you'd prefer to do that first.
Should we just have
think it would probably make the most sense for next iteration before peer review, just because of sheer cost, but to their cost. There's 2 peer reviews, remember? Yeah. I like the audible feedback tonight. We haven't been able to get this on the mics, so you don't know if you're talking loud enough.
We'd certainly like to get going with traffic peer review.
Mhm.
And the engineering seems to make sense as well, because if there are some architectural changes or options to discuss along with what Mr. McKelvey presented,
Okay.
we could go ahead and submit those as options.
All right.
Rather than,
So you'd prefer us to get moving on peer review,
I think so.
traffic
Yes.
/ parking and site? Okay.
Yes.
Got it. And as far as design review, I'd like to see you guys go back before them with anything else. I mean, it sounds like there's real specific things that were brought up tonight, specific to the cupola, right, signage, as far as that goes. So if you guys could at least do one more pass through, that would be very helpful. I think it would show the town too that you're truly listening as far as that goes. So, anything else you guys want to put out there for now? No, we got a pending thing yet.
I've got just a quick list of things, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to ask for the answers, though I'm sure you could give them. The lighting, I'm assuming it's LED, energy efficient lighting. I think we'll definitely want as much of it as possible to be on timers, so it's off in the middle of the night. The landscaping, I'm assuming it's all native plants. Looking at the connection with the municipal parking lot, if you don't want people crossing through there, you're going to want fairly tall plants, or people are going to try and jump over them because people like to take shortcuts. That's something you're going to have to like to look at more closely in a future meeting. As to the signage, there's probably the only one here, except possibly Matt, who has the institutional memory of when we did a similar special permit hearing for TD Bank in the Shaw's Plaza. And I believe we looked at it based on what was appropriate for that site, which is, of course, different from this site in many, many ways. We ended up giving them a special permit for some of the signage, but not all of the signage they asked for. We said that for the directional signage, even though it had the logo, the recommendation from the town planner, which was a different town planner, was that we not treat that as advertising signage, but as directional signage, even though it did have the bank's logo on it, because it's just helping people find the bank as opposed to really telling people from a significant distance.
Okay.
So I can talk more about that process as we get into reviewing the special permit of what we did in that case, to the extent that it applies here. My general feeling is that banks tend to overdo the signage more than most other businesses.
Okay. Mike, did you have something?
Just one minor comment for now, since we're going to peer review, was around safety and traffic study with Concord Street there. I don't know if, I haven't heard anybody mention that we have a school nearby, and so during the hours of 3 to 5, there's also increased traffic along that corridor, and a lot of people walking and kids walking. So I don't know if we want to take a look at, have that mentioned in the peer review, or also have a traffic study during, I know we said Saturday during the farmer's market, but I think, and we don't have much more time to get out there, right? School's over in a week or two, but I think it's,
Can I jump back
since
in?
it's one of your rush hours.
I forgot to mention, I heard a comment about the traffic of, well, except for when there's a train. You can't say except for when there's a train, because the trains are a part of the reality of downtown. So any traffic study needs to take into account that we do have trains going through downtown.
Yeah.
And you can't just ignore that time.
Okay.
And I'd also like to, the other thing I forgot to mention about design review, I would like to see more of a conclusion from the design review committee on this, and I think some of the directions they're going look good.
Matt, anything?
I agree with some of the comments on the drive-through and the ATM location. It seems a little crowded. That's one comment that I would like to make, so.
Okay. Herman, anything you want to see them work on?
Definitely what I've heard from you guys. One thing I want to add to that, this is on the clock. It's, to me, my personal opinion, it seems like very recessed, and it kind of defeats the purpose of, you got this big, huge clock, and it's way in there. You really got to really stand far back to really appreciate it, in my mind. Maybe another option might be to have a smaller clock that can fit on front to not compete with the existing clock that's out there. Because I think part of the concern was that it competing with the other clock, but maybe something smaller that would fit on the front of the building there would be a better option to me. But that was one comment I wanted to add, just to see if there's another option there.
Okay. And you were giving me the look, so nothing yet?
No, just really quickly, in addition to what Mike said, I'm a little bit concerned just obliquely opposite from that is the senior housing.
Mm-hmm.
And, some of them tend to be a little bit more pedestrian.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of concerned about that, in addition to the school. So if we can kind of take those things into consideration, especially if we want to make our downtown a little bit more pedestrian friendly, just kind of really would want to hear a little bit more about that.
Okay. So we'd have a motion to continue, we have to continue both of these, so continue the public hearing, which is the special permit. I don't know if peer review is going to be back to us by June 26th, but
What's your normal turnaround?
it's usually 3 to 4 weeks, but would you rather, that's probably going to make more sense for you because I'm sure you have a good amount of costs coming in here with the team. That would be July 10th. You can risk it. I mean, you could, some of that might not be back. You have another opportunity to hear from the public. Or you could move to July 10th, you'll probably have a more complete package.
Yeah, I think we prefer to wait till peer review's back.
Okay.
Or at least
Have
the peer review's
more likely,
back.
okay. So July 10th, we have a motion to continue the public hearings for the special permit to July 10th.
At what time?
Let's go 7:30 and not plan anything afterwards.
Moved.
Okay. So do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, that's 5-0. And now do I have a motion to continue the public discussion for the site plan to July 10th? Same time? We'll do it.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5-0, okay, thank you. We'll have a brief recess while, I'm assuming some people are gonna hang out, some people are not. While the next applicant sets up, so about a 5-minute recess. Back into mode. All right, we're gonna start the next site. Thanks, guys. So if you're gonna hang out for the next discussion, that'd be great. Otherwise, socialize in the hall, please. And if we can shut the doors and we'll show them that we're actually starting again, that'll be the indicator. I think the applicant's still out there, so.
He was a builder.
So this is a public discussion. All right, let me know when we're back on. I think I'm on now, actually.
Is our applicant here?
He's in the hallway. I saw him.
Okay.
You want to grab him?
Yeah, okay.
Matt's going to be back in. Matt's back in? All right, Matt.
He has memory of this.
Cooking up some food?
What's that?
Cooking up some food back there? Got the hibachi going? All right. Just tell me when we're on. Get a social bunch tonight, huh? It's 9:30 and everyone's ready to chat it up. Chatting it up. Okay, can we get our camera guy back?
Camera dude.
I think this is one of the toughest times we've had reining it in. Are you ready? Okay, we're back to the Ashland Planning Board meeting. It is now 9:30, and we're beginning a public discussion on the Rail Transit District. You want to give us some background now?
Sure. For those of you who are still here, and for those of you who have joined us, we're here now to discuss a site plan approval for a project in the Rail Transit District championed by Mr. Robert Gaynor Orlando, owner of a significant portion of the Rail Transit District, 220 acres, I believe, and who is now present in the audience. In June of 2000, Mr. Gaynor came before the town in a special town meeting to ask the town to vote into existence the Rail Transit District. This was a new zoning district. Town meeting gave its approval, as we all know. As is written in section 8.4.1 of the zoning bylaw, the Rail Transit District is established to provide a coordinated high aesthetic standard for the development of high technology, research and development, incubator establishments, offices, all of a non-nuisance type, and have provision for retail and multi-unit housing. Other purposes are mentioned as well. In June 2008, the Planning Board granted a certificate of approval, that is a site plan approval, for a project of Mr. Gaynor's called Jefferson at Ashland to be constructed in the Rail Transit District. You have a copy of the site plan in your binder. It's a small copy. The whole kit and caboodle is right here if you want to sift through it. In August of 2012, the Planning Board granted Mr. Gaynor an extension of the site plan approval. No shovel had yet been put in the ground, and had the approval not been extended by the Planning Board, Mr. Gaynor would have had to start over with the site plan approval process. Mr. Gaynor now comes before you to seek another extension of the site plan approval. It will expire June 20th if it is not extended. This extension of the site plan approval would be for that very same site plan shown in your binder, and that's what's right here in front of you. He's also here for another reason. When the Jefferson at Ashland site plan was approved in 2008, the approval was granted to the developer of the project, a firm called JPI. JPI no longer exists at this time. Mr. Gaynor is seeking your approval to transfer the site plan approval from JPI to an existing entity, Ashland RTD Apartments LLC, a Massachusetts limited liability company. This is necessary for the project to move forward. There are others in the room I know who can probably speak more to this and the other topics that I discussed, so that's all I have for now.
Okay. All right. Did we had somebody representing the town, we had town manager. Did you want to give some comments, some feedback on this, and then we'll discuss?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, this project has been in progress for many years. The economic downturn that happened resulted in JPI going out of business. As the economy started to improve and I came on board, Mr. Gaynor approached us about the turnaround in the economic market and wanted to get the project start going again. Obviously, it had the support from the town. We had an existing site plan approval, and it really was a public-private partnership. The town with the concurrence of the Board of Selectmen, applied for a significant MassWorks grant in the amount of $6 million based on Governor Patrick's desire to enhance transit-oriented development as a major initiative for the state. Ashland having the first, I believe the first in the state, rail transit district zoning actually started here. And so we've been working through since about the September timeframe. We were awarded the grant. Mr. Gaynor has been working to bring another developer on board the project. Obviously, with the looming expiration of the site plan approval on June 20th here in another week, obviously this extension is necessary, as well as the assignment of the site plan. We've talked to Lisa Mead at length, and perhaps Adam can chime in from the legal perspective, but JPI signed a release to Mr. Gaynor that Town Council has reviewed in detail, that in her opinion, the assignment of the site plan approval from JPI to the new Ashland, I think it's Ashland RTD LLC, is an allowable, transfer, if you will. So, Adam, I don't know if you want to comment more on that from that perspective, but so they're here before you to obviously ask for those two things. The extension, we've discussed a short-term extension. The town, in addition to the MassWorks grant, the town also worked with Mr. Gaynor to establish a pretty extensive covenant that runs with the land, that had a lot of different aspects to it that the town wanted to see happen in the rail transit district, as well as a agreement between the town and Jefferson at Ashland, which talked about mitigation funds and all of that. And the town has been in discussions with Mr. Gaynor to establish a development agreement that would actually bring into it the aspects of the covenant, as well as the mitigation that the town feels is warranted, some of that pull from the JPI agreement. So we are currently working on that. And our desire is to have a short-term extension initially until we actually work out that development agreement. And I believe the request from Mr. Gaynor, when he has a chance to speak, will be for 90 days, at which time we will work to actually get a development agreement agreed to, be able to bring it before the Board of Selectmen for them to actually vote on and sign, since they'll be the signatories to that development agreement, as well as if the covenant is going to be incorporated into that, there'll also be an additional presence before the planning board and perhaps the Board of Selectmen in a joint meeting, because both of those boards need to vote on any change to that covenant. So, and that's actually written in the covenant. So that's where we're at this point in time.
Do you feel 90 days is the appropriate amount of time?
I believe so, yes. We've been working on a draft for the last several months. We've had a number of meetings recently. There is somewhat of a sense of urgency, I think, for us to get that done. Our MassWorks grant was actually granted in December by the Office of Housing and Economic Development, and so obviously they're anxious to be able to show the execution of that MassWorks grant. And like I said, we have a good draft that we're working on now, and we're comfortable that we can actually come to an agreement. Our hope is to present to the Board of Selectmen at our August 6th meeting, which will then give us time to make sure we get everything done between them and the planning board before a 90-day extension would expire, which would be somewhere in the third week of September, I would guess.
So as town manager, your recommendation to the board is
to approve the transfer of the site plan approval to Mr. Gaynor, as well as approving a 90-day extension, with the caveat that, we come to an agreement on the development agreement during that period of time.
Okay, great, thank you. We could, give me a couple minutes, we're gonna go to the applicant. Is there anything the applicant wants to add to this?
Yeah, I don't want to get too deeply into the weeds on the whole development. I think some of you know quite a bit about it, and many don't, because it's been a long time. This all started by getting the MBTA to put a rail station on the site, which was quite a job at the time, since they were only going to put in Southborough, Westborough, Boylston, and Worcester. They saw this as a very good site for a station because it could service Holliston, Hopkinton, and the southern towns. And in doing so, we found that the majority of the traffic would come from the south, where the traffic from the north and the west would mostly go to the other stations that were already assigned down for the project. Thus, they put the road through what we call the MBTA access road at the Dunkin' Donuts corner of 135 to access the parking on this side of the tracks, and then they put parking Burnham side, on Danny Jerry's side of the tracks, but the majority of the parking being on the south side. That was built to what they call driveway standards, so to speak. It's a road and built well, but it wasn't built to total, complete town standards. And it is an MBTA roadway. As a result of that, through prior town manager, we attended a conference related to what they called rail transit districts. The very first transit districts were patterned after the BART system in California, in San Francisco, the Bay Area Rapid Transit System. And it advocated denser population on the rail directly on the parking, less dense further out, and then typical suburban sprawl beyond that. With Apple Ridge being that typical, suburban type housing, we proposed apartments and condominium townhomes as those interim pieces. And went through a very protracted process, getting input from the town and so on. And it was a true private-public effort. Ended up having a town meeting, which was in June 21st of 2000. Seems like another life ago. And it was passed by the largest town meeting in the history of the town. There were 740 some odd people there. JPI, national developer, they're the largest developer of market rate apartments in the U.S., had contracted, subject to passage at town meeting, to build the 500 market rate apartments at the rail station, and began that process in early 2000. They were specifically designed in a fashion that would meet certain of the town's wants, desires, requirements, whatever way you want to look at it. They're 40% one bedroom and 60% two bedroom, which is very unusual. You can go throughout Metro West and doubt that you're going to find that type of a mix. And it was done to keep the number of school-age children to a minimum because of the town's problems with schools and so on at the time. So there was a lot of give and take. Unfortunately, during the mid-2000s, JPI had some reorganization problems and so on, kind of fell out of bed. So there was a kind of a hiatus period where they were not continuing with the planning process. They picked back up again around 2006 and finished in June of 2008. Unfortunately, that was the worst economic tsunami in the history of the country, and they, like a lot of other developers, failed. They had developments all over the country, and they ended up defaulting on that. They tried to keep things going for a period of time through the summer, but they finally defaulted and left in November 2008. We had 2 years from the, and I'll just correct you on just that on one
Please,
thing.
please.
There was a normal 2-year life of the site plan approval, which took it from June of 2008 through June of 2010. In 2010, the legislature passed an economic stimulus bill, and as part of that bill was the Permit Extension Act, which was garnered due to the development industry in general and attorneys that represent them and so on, and they lobbied for this because there were tons of developments all over the country, but specifically this was for Massachusetts. This was done in other places. To make sure that all the hard work that had been put into these developments didn't go for naught. So any development that had a permit, valid permit during a certain time frame, became automatically extended for an additional 24 months, 2 years. So that took it from basically from June of 2010 through June of 2012. In 2012, they realized that things were not getting any better in the development area, especially in the suburbs where everything was being built in the cities with larger population, quicker, rent outs and so on for apartments. So they had a second extension bill that took it through June of 2014, and that's where we are at this point. So this is, as was explained by Tony, for quite some time, it made no difference that the permit, in essence, sat in the name of JPI, because there really wasn't activity in Metro West. There was almost no apartment, there was 0 apartment building from 2009, 8, 9, through probably 6, 8 months, a year ago. And then things have started to pick up, as always happens. They've started moving further out. There's not as much land in town, and people are looking for lower rents and so on. So things are starting to move, and we've gotten back active with it. I have. For a long time, we just sat and just sort of waited it out. There was no activity. So we're now at the point where there's a lot of interest, a lot of activity, and we think it's time that we can really bring this back to life. But we find ourselves at the point where the second extension's running out, and we don't think there's going to be another extension. So we're in need of getting, we'd like a longer extension, but we have agreed with the town that we will suffice a 90-day extension. And that was a very good question. We initially asked for a 2-year extension and to work through all of these issues and be able to present it to a developer. But we've compromised on getting an extension for a long enough period of time to finish up the development agreement that basically replaces the development agreement that JPI had entered into as part of the site plan approval. There's the site plan approval that basically does run with the land in essence, but there's a separate development agreement that JPI signed, which carries some of the mitigation and some of the, the agreements that they made with the town. So we are working to replace that and some other agreements and combine them into one comprehensive agreement that's, acceptable to both the town and my company. And then we are hopeful, very hopeful, to bring in a replacement apartment builder to kick off the anchor tenant, so to speak, in the first phase of the RTD, and then start working toward the other phases, and build something that's very unique. And as Nat said, this is not only the first one in Massachusetts, it was the first one east of the Mississippi. Everything was out west. So this is was very important to the governor, and I think that's an initiative he took that was, I applaud him for, because transit-oriented development is really the hottest thing in the country, and this is perfect. It's halfway between Boston and Worcester, and it makes a lot of sense.
Did you guys have any questions for the applicant, planning board? Yeah, good.
As far as the mitigation, is that gonna transfer with this 90-day extension, the existing mitigation?
Well, you got to remember that a lot of this mitigation was brought to bear back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. So we have mitigation now that's more attuned to today since the MassWorks grant. So it's similar, but not exactly.
But the 90-day
Yeah,
extension,
that's right.
that attaches the existing agreement, not what's being negotiated now.
A new agreement that will usurp, will take the place of the existing agreement and.
So it's not in place yet.
We have drafts and we have worked on it for some time. Tony can probably answer that.
Can you maybe clarify your question? I just want to make sure I understand. You're asking whether the agreement with JPI is going to continue during the 90 days? Not really. JPI doesn't exist. That's why we're doing this new development agreement, bringing it up to 2014 between the town and Mr. Gaynor's company.
Preston?
Yeah, I just want to say that I know the rest of the board, except for Matt, was not here when this was done. We have a new planning director, we have a new town manager, we have new selectmen.
Right.
So there's a lot of people, a lot of complicated issues with this that that a lot of people aren't very familiar with, and there's a lot to go over to make sure everybody's on the same page here. You know, the drainage goes through a culvert that's in fairly poor repair. That was one of the big issues we spent a lot of time on. Normally, with a project like this, the applicant pays for, or the developer pays for the inspections as the project progresses. Whereas instead there was a negotiated through the selectmen that they would pay X amount for all of the inspections, and I know our town planner at the time had some concerns over whether that was adequate or not. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be looked at, sort of on the financial side, a lot of things that need to be looked at on the infrastructure side from the town. As far as the plans themselves, I don't think the town's standards have changed significantly as far as what and how we would permit this. There may have been some mistakes. There may be things that we think should be done differently, and I don't know how far into it we want to get. I don't know to what extent some new developer is going to come back saying, I want to make changes. The only thing I really regretted when this was all done is that we didn't have the staircase down to the train station, that got removed because it was considered at the time too hard to keep it safe in the winter. So some of these things that at some point we may want to revisit and decide what to do. We may decide that there's just been so much with this that we really need to go through the site plan review process again. So I kind of hope not.
Let me give you some ideas on the deadlines of this, because Adam can probably fill you in as far as the extension. Like, we have this expires on
the 20th.
So that would be by today's date.
Just about a week from
Okay, so we got a week, and let's just have kind of a special meeting. We have a task at hand here as far as this goes. I wanted to see if there's anything from the public. It looked like there were some comments. If we can take them. So we'll give them the mic for a couple minutes here. Yeah, come on.
John, so I do have a couple.
You do too? Okay, come back up here. I saw you there.
Sarah Hines, Elliott Street. I've known Mr. Gaynor a long time, and I am an appreciator of his plight. I was here at a meeting where he came in and asked for relief for property taxes because he had a parcel that he couldn't even walk on. He said, why should I pay taxes? I can't use it in any way possible, because that's when it was being cleaned up. And then this project came in, and I actually we put together a group, and we were going to try to get to be appointed the reviewers of it. So I spent a lot of time looking at it. And JPI's out, and I think that's a good thing. I think that they made some choices. I mean, first of all, it's 500 units, and is the additional 197 units still contemplated that was permitted for elderly?
There's 190 units adjacent to it,
Yeah, adjacent to it.
Right now, primarily, we're looking at the
Yeah, so it's like so it was about 691 dwellings, which at the time, ironically, was 10% of the total dwellings in the town. It was on a cul-de-sac because there was only one emergency exit that had a gate over it at one end of it, and I thought that was potentially from traffic a disaster. I mean, there were estimates at the time. This was before legacy farms happened, and there were estimates at the time that the Dunkin' Donuts and the Cherry Street exit at times would be in failure from that. There wasn't really an accounting, and when I was looking at the calculations, there really was not an accounting for school buses. And we did know, at the time I was up on it, what you could expect from multifamily in terms of students, and it was evident you'd have 125 students or more, so you'd have a number of school buses at the same time you had rush hour. The thing is, you said there were steps to the station. There were 44 steps to the station to go down that hill, a tall staircase to get down there. And that's because whatever JPA pulled out for design, it was probably designed for a flat Ohio field, standard stuff. And so we have a very hilly site that should have had a finer grained kind of development there. Instead, there were these giant blocks of buildings. So they ended up kind of grading things flat, which when you got out to the edge, you had to go way downstairs. So it was problematic layout. Yeah, I'm so in favor of him getting to do something with this. Also, there was no mixed use. In our original TOD zoning, it also encouraged another alternate, which is have some mixed use in there, a convenience store, something. We got all apartments, which is an alternate in the zoning. But I'm hoping that whatever we do to grant him extensions or whatever is going to allow them a lot of latitude to change things. Because I know there's a huge expense in the engineering that's happened on this. And I'm so glad we've got this Mass Works money, because we may be able to do something different. We may be able, if we could connect the depot or the station road over to Corderville or High Street. I know the people on High Street would not like that, but it would make the town work better. So I'm just hoping that whatever you decide on extending this, that you somehow write into it the way that we can get a better output out of this. It's going to solve some of our problems, because now that we have legacy farms on 135, 135 is going to start getting really badly impacted by growth on 135, plus we're throwing in this thing. So anyway, I'm in favor of getting Mr. Gaynor a project. I mean, I want to see it before we both die. we want something good to get built. We want something good to get built there. That's the other side of it. So it's my comment.
Thank you. Tony, do you want?
I just wanted to address Preston's question real quick on infrastructure, exceptional services, things that were in the original agreement. So we're moving much of that stuff over. So we're looking at all of those types of things. Just for those that may not be familiar, the MassWorks grant, one of the things it'll do, one of the major portions of that is a complete reconstruction of the MBTA road up to complete street standards with bike lanes, sidewalks, all the utilities. It also includes, there's 5 components to it. It also includes an upgrade to the West Union sewer transmission line, which will not only support the development, but actually it's going to support other developments along Route 135 as well. Also, biking and walking trails are included in that to connect the rail transit district to downtown. Also includes some work on what they call the Loop Road, as well as the secondary water connection with Southborough, which has, again, applicability across the town. So there's a number of infrastructure things that are included in that MassWorks grant. The primary reason that we got that grant was because of the transit-oriented development nature of this particular site in meeting the governor's objectives for that type of development. So we're taking into consideration, I think, all the things that you mentioned, and probably then some that we know today that maybe didn't exist back in 2008 when the first site plan was approved.
Great, thanks. I think we had Joel. We had Joel first. Sorry, I'll grab your attitude. Just bouncing around.
Joel Arbeitman, Woodridge Lane. First, I just want to say thank you. I'm very impressed with Sarah's recommendation of you, so I'm glad to have you working with the town. I'm not well informed about this project, and when I hear about dates like June 21st, 2000, I don't know, what was that for? The approval of the rail transit district at town meeting? Is that what that was for? That was 14 years ago. We've given birth to a teenager here, and it's a long time that the public has had no access to commenting on this, and that concerns me just from a governance point of view. I'm not clear what the implications of not extending this permit would be. Does that necessarily mean everything just dies and everything goes away, or we could take advantage of some of the discussions of revisiting the design, revisiting the way the site plan is put together, and reinitiating a process that sounds like it needs to be reworked to some degree. I mean, I'm not sure what we lose. I don't necessarily hear that. I mean, it's not clear whether the applicant would continue the process, whether the town loses things. So the concern being that it's been a very long time since there's been any public hearing or public discussion or public input on this very substantial project. I'm not for it, I'm not against it. I don't really know what some of the details are here. And I guess what I'm looking for is to take a giant step backwards and do things right, give everyone in town an opportunity to come up to speed on what's going on, give the design process time to work, and hopefully move ahead there. Maybe it's a perfect project, but it just, I don't understand the urgency of and concern about letting the expiration just expire at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mike had something?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, just one sec. Mike had a quick comment, and then we'll.
I can wait. All right. Well,
Oh
a
my
couple
gosh,
of them
yeah.
were. I was going back to Matt's question. So I feel as the same way Joel and Sarah do, is just kind of uninformed, right? I'm new to the board. This happened before I was even a resident in Ashland, and I just haven't heard. I've always heard about it, right? But I just haven't seen anything, and I'm seeing it for the first time. The grant, the MassWorks grant, is it directly tied to this specific site plan, and does it have an expiration date?
It is directly tied to the Rail
Development.
Transit District Development Project, that's correct. In the grant application, we do reference this plan in that. And I don't remember the exact words, it's called the plan, I believe, because at the time we weren't sure if there was going to be any need for any site plan, modification, which obviously would come back before the board. But yes, it was referenced to it, and it is tied to that. Is there an expiration? I can tell you I had an audience with Secretary Bielecki over this just a short time ago. Mr. Gaynor was there as well. Because of the fact, especially with the upcoming change in the administration, there is in their mind a sense of urgency to show execution. This is actually my understanding is the third largest MassWorks grant they ever given out. And so most of those big grants you're seeing going to Worcester, other big cities, we were fortunate enough to get the third largest grant, and there is some concern on the part of the secretary to actually be able to show execution of this grant, because it was in actually FY14, this fiscal year, that the grant was awarded, but it's obviously we're not going to be able to start executing until next fiscal year. So I'm expecting a letter at any time from them, basically articulating our agreement to be able to continue forward with the grant. But once there's a change, you don't really know. So until we start executing the grant, there is some concern that we can end up losing it. If we lose the grant, obviously it doesn't bode well for Ashland itself, since we obviously applied for the grant. But it also could potentially derail the project, because it is such a significant amount of money to support the project, and the infrastructure needs the town's going to need to be able to support it.
What constitutes executing the grant or starting the grant?
From the secretary's words, he wants to see the developer ready to put shovels in the ground before they actually allow us to sign the MassWorks contract. And we do other other work with MassWorks contracts. We did the Cold Spring Brook project that we eliminated a major choke point at Cold Spring Brook. So obviously, we don't want to have egg on our face, I guess, to put it any other way, with this, that potentially could jeopardize other grants if we're not able to execute what we were given. So hopefully we can.
Great. Okay. The new, I guess one more question, Tony, that you may be able to answer. Sure. The new mitigation that Matt was referencing, that would be tied, that you guys are discussing right now, that would just replace the old mitigation and the same site plan would be approved, or would it come back for a review of any sort based on changes to mitigation that was discussed?
I think maybe Adam may be able to address that. My understanding would be, and you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, certainly they have a valid site plan approval if they were going to build the plan without any modifications to it. My assumption is they can build the plan. Obviously, if they want to make changes to it, depending on what that is, then obviously they would have to come back before the board for a site plan modification, depending on which way they go. Is that a correct statement?
That is accurate. I mean, the site plan approval is a site plan approval. So to the extent that it's extended, it affords rights. I think the goal, as I understand it, and I'm certainly not the most educated person in the room on this project or the history of it, but as I understand it, the goal is to provide a limited extension for a restricted period of time. I think 90 days has been proposed, simply for the purpose of finalizing the development agreement, because there are so many important aspects of the project that are tied up in that development agreement. But the development agreement is separate and apart. Much of the mitigation is referenced in the development agreement and not in the site plan approval. So it's a separate document. It needs to be negotiated and signed separately. But the site plan approval stands by itself and on its own. To the extent that there are modifications for the project, to the extent that whatever developer is located for the project doesn't want to build exactly what was permitted, what is it now, 6+ years ago, any modification to the plans will require a modification to the site plan approval. That would be a little bit different than starting back at square one, as was suggested, which would be the consequence if there's no immediate extension and this is allowed to expire on June 20th. The applicant would need to make an entirely new application for site plan approval. If there are changes to the plan and there's a new application submitted, it's only a modification application. The only issues are those changes to the project from what was originally approved. So it's a difference in scope of the board's review in the event that there are changes to the project as it proceeds.
Do we have any ability to write in some kind of mitigation or rule that says the site plan's approved, but it should still go up for a review within the four corners of the site plan to see if maybe there are things that are no longer appropriate that can be discussed, but doesn't disqualify the current site plan?
Well, the reality would be, in doing that, you're essentially denying the extension, because the whole idea behind an extension is that you're permitting the owner of the rights, in this case it'd be the transferee of the rights, because this is a sort of a two-part motion that's being proposed, first a transfer and then an extension, but you're permitting that transferee to continue to hold those rights. If you require that the transferee come back before the board for review, well, isn't that one and the same as rejecting the extension and saying we want you to submit a new application for site plan approval? So we have prepared, and it's obviously left it to the board's discretion. We didn't and don't intend to influence the board in any way as to how it should vote this evening, but in consultation with Mr. Schiavi, my colleague Lisa Mead, who you all know, prepared a couple of motions for your consideration, and one of them is the motion that addresses the extension. And there are some contingencies that both she, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Schiavi, but I think he had supported to provide some additional protection and to sort of express the intention, if such a motion is voted, that this be a limited extension for the sole purpose of allowing that development agreement to be finalized over the next 90 days. One is that during the 90-day period, the owner has to provide the planning board with some plan showing milestones as to how it intends to execute the site plan approval. Whether that involves future modifications or not is left to the applicant, to the transferee. The second, of course, would be that there be an agreed-upon development agreement by the close of the 90 days so that the applicant could come back before the board and seek a further extension with that development agreement in place. And then finally, there should be a condition, and Lisa Mead and I discussed this at length, that prevents any sort of a transfer over the course of the next 90 days. What that would allow is, I think we can probably all agree, and maybe Mr. Gaynor would even testify, that he's not developing this property himself. He's selecting a developer. JPI was the original developer. He's going to coordinate and negotiate with the developer to build this property. That's likely not going to happen in the next 90 days, but were it to happen by some miracle in the next 90 days, a transfer provision that prohibits any transfer over the course of the next 90 days without planning board approval gives the planning board the ability to be able to review such a transfer if, for whatever reason, there were a developer located who could act immediately on the site plan approval as it currently stands with no modification whatsoever. I think that's unlikely, but it provides the protection in the event that were to occur. And so we've worked those contingencies into a proposed motion to the board. To the extent that the board sees fit to grant the extension, I would certainly recommend and advise the board to include those protections to the advantage of itself and the town of Ashland.
Your question, Preston?
This is also for our attorney. So I just correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that for an extension to a site plan approval, we can add reasonable conditions just as we can at the time of the site plan approval. So if there was something where we said, oh, at the time we approved this, we forgot to say that you can't do construction after 8 p.m., we can put that as a new condition on with the extension. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, the board has some, albeit limited, discretion in reviewing an application of this sort for an extension, because the board could deny the extension. So certainly I imagine it would be to the benefit of the applicant, the transferee, to obtain an extension of the deadline, even if it were conditioned, as opposed to being outright denied the extension. So if the board has the discretion to deny it, certainly it can reasonably condition it. The trick or the caveat is that when a board imposes conditions through a site plan review process, those conditions are restricted to conditions that are required for the purpose of mitigating adverse project impacts. So there would need to be some information that's before the board to support a condition. I wouldn't want a condition to be issued in a vacuum or without adequate rationale for why that condition needs to exist now, where it didn't need to exist 6-7 years ago when this project was originally permitted. That's the only caveat.
Good. Mark, did you have a question?
Yes. Good evening. Welcome back, Mr. Gaynor. I was at home watching the beginnings of this, and he mentioned the 2000 town meeting. We had 794 people at the old Mendez School auditorium. The term, and I'm only gonna say it because out of the kindness now. We're done beating the dead horse. Okay? Welcome back to Ashland. Welcome to our new beginnings. The JPI system from, I would probably guess, February, March of 1999 with all the revisions. Throughout the summer, we had heated planning board meetings to people out on the street saying, why is the town letting this happen? Is now fruition, hopefully going forward with the town of Ashland's blessings. I remember at the times that there was small discussions, big arguments, where's the emergency turnarounds and the roads and all that stuff. Once we get past that, there was a logical, let's bring us a new plan, Mr. Gaynor, and then see what happens from there. He did. It was a 100% turnaround plan. But yet the town meeting we had in 2000 did not understand that what he's gone through, what the planning board at that time has gone through, it's hearing the backgrounds is what's making this a positive note once we know that the land he's going to be working on is still completely EPA, NIASA safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any
I just
comments? Yeah.
want to clarify something. So the only way that we could review the site plan, you're saying is if we deny the extension. That's what I'm hearing.
It would probably cost the town upwards of $7 to $8 million, but that may be true.
But, you're talking about because of the grant, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you deny the extension, then that jeopardizes the grant, correct?
Among other things. And I mean, the way I look at this is we have town management sitting here telling us, hey, look, we're working on this. We have considerable assets, time, energy, money involved in this. We're asking for 90 days. It's pretty simple as far as I'm concerned. If we come back after 90 days and that isn't happening, maybe that clearly shows there's no good faith as far as from the other side of this, as far as working through this. So I mean, at some point you got to look at this and say, our board looked at this years ago and spent a lot of time, energy, resources at this, and we're at a point now where somebody's basically saying, hey, look, our town is saying, hey, give us 90 days, let's see what we can do here. So I have two motions in front of me.
I got a question that I want to build off of it, because I appreciate town management being here and saying we're working through this, and I respect that, and for that, I would probably be in favor of granting an extension. But can we require that we are provided newer site plans, updated maps, so we are ready after the 90 days and get more information on this project? I mean, I feel like getting this today or this week and the maps I get to see doesn't really give me a clear picture of the appropriateness of the product we approved. And we kind of have a second chance at maybe changing things or doing it correctly. And with the effort we've put in, and I know our prior boards have put a lot of effort into it, and our town management's working with him now in good faith to try and come up with a new mitigation plan. I'd hate to see that go to waste. I just don't want to be here again in 90 days and still not know anything about this project and not know, is it still appropriate? Is there things that need to be changed? So that's kind of where I'm at, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman,
do you have a comment? Yeah.
Just one
Yeah, sure.
question and comment. Ryan Turncliffe, 20 Rossi Lane. This is what happens when I come to meetings. I end up with questions. I try to sit quietly. I'm very much in respect of a board that made a decision 10 years ago, and I think that should be honored. But I do agree with Joel that myself and maybe other members of the board, at least one I've heard, weren't here 10 years ago, and so I don't know that can we do both? Can we respect a previous decision and yet have an opportunity to see this project again more publicly? I came to the meeting, I had no idea what rail transit district meant. To me, it meant something about the rail district. It didn't mean a multi-million-dollar project. It also had no idea that there's a very important state grant at risk here, and that's also an important consideration. So I would agree with some of the comments made already. Is there a way that we can get both? Can we respect and honor the decision that was made 10 years ago and still have an opportunity to make comment today?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, go ahead, President.
I think what would be nice from the planning board's perspective is to have a chance over this 90-day period of time to get a much better handle on this plan and the conditions and everything as it is now, so that assuming everything works well and they come back with a new agreement and everything and want to go forward with a 2-year extension, that we have a lot more confidence in that. That we're not, that you're not voting on something where you didn't even you don't even know what the original plan was. And that if there's something that the planning board missed at the time, we can condition that, as opposed to forcing a whole new site plan review. But I think we need to spend some time on this as a board. I don't know how much this would involve the applicant as opposed to us just pulling out the old plans and talking about them. But I think, whatever we end up doing, we need to get a better understanding of the project.
Mm-hmm.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
I'd be happy to come in anytime you want. And it doesn't have to be I know you have to have public hearings, but, we can have an informal hearing. We can, bring in some of the old, drawings and large-scale posters that we use for town meeting and so on. We can walk through this. I'm sorry, I missed your name. You're on Russet Road, right? Oh, not in Apple Ridge? No, sir. Oh, okay, I thought you said Russet Road, I'm sorry. Yeah, there were a lot of accommodations made for the abutters, and that's why I brought it up, such as a 100-foot uncut buffer, and the reason we don't have access, as you remember, because High Street people did not want access on the High Street. They didn't feel that they wanted that kind of traffic to go through High Street for good reason, and so it was made an emergency, entrance and exit for emergency vehicles to get in and out from the town. So all these had a lot of thought behind it. The entire site plan approval, minus the short hiatus, was it's a 6-year endeavor. There were 21 public hearings before we got to town meeting, plus the town meeting. And this thing was vetted like nothing else probably ever in the state of Massachusetts, because you had the Superfund cleanup process going on coincidentally. I mean, exactly the same time that was going on. So we're in a much different place, fortunately. But we didn't get here quickly. The 2008 tsunami took out about 70% of the developers that were doing projects. And the only reason that I'm standing here today is because the state had the good sense to extend these things legislatively, so that all that hard work by not only developers and a lot of money spent, but an awful lot of hard work by the town people and 21 public hearings and all of the planning board hearings, and David Foster just got off the board. If he was here, he could give you a long harangue about the many hours that they spent and so on to get this thing just right. They worked very hard on it. So you're not jumping into the middle of a project that has been thrown in front of you. And I appreciate you weren't here. I mean, it's a long time ago. I was a lot younger, and but when that tsunami hit, and I keep using that word because it really was, it was the worst, because it was international. It wasn't just national, but it hit the development industry very, very hard. And many went out of business. But there's a few projects that were able to continue to stay intact and not blow up the whole thing and lose all of that effort by both the town and the developers and all the money spent. We spent $38,000 on the town meeting alone, and the process leading up to it. So there was a lot of effort and a lot of money spent, And what they said in their inimitable wisdom, let's not see that all go to waste for projects that have actually reached the finish line, gotten their approvals, were ready to close and start building, which they were in July of 2008, and then they lost it. And they're gone. But they made the provision that the proponent, being Magunko, and the landowner, could pick up and take that up where that was left off. Unfortunately, there was nobody building in that period of time, and it was foolhardy to even talk to people, because the only ones that were buying were bottom feeders that said, you know, give me some money and I'll take it off your hands. So it was a dead time. But things are now finally picking up, which they do, usually much more quickly. But it took 5 years, and I know Nat sees that happening. Legacy Farms got going, and there's another one in Marlboro that's starting up on the old digital equipment campus, which became Hewlett-Packard. So where we're at this point, to put it fairly succinctly, because you've been here all night, and I hate to keep you any longer, but this is a very important project for the town. I've lived through a lot on this thing, and it's a vision, and I want to see it happen. And I'm not somebody coming in here trying to put something over on the town, because there's nothing been vetted like this, trust me. But the good news is the EPA has now declared everything up there completely clean, no problems. There's never been any development on the land that we're working on. And it's a better time from that standpoint. We have two major developers that are very interested in building this site plan. And we managed to get the MassWorks grant through a lot of work from all of us. Tony worked and Mike worked a great deal on it, but it came to the town because of the rail transit district. That's why this was put on the top of the totem pole, and this is why it got $6 million grant versus a $2 or $3 million grant, because Governor Patrick was really in favor of transit-oriented development. And that was the impetus to get the grant. But because of the grant, it's going to get the road rebuilt, it's going to get the utilities up there, it's going to take some of the costs that have precluded developers from jumping in, because they're being very cautious after what happened before. But there's also another significant amount of money that's going to hooking up to the MWRA to get additional water for the town, which is a very necessary, getting the West Union Street extension to get additional sewer capacity, monies toward the potential sewage treatment plant. So this is a true public-private partnership. We've worked very closely together. You guys are real lucky to have a town manager like Tony. I'll say no more about that. I really believe that. I mean, he's a very proactive guy. He makes good sense. He thinks things through. We've had a very good dialogue. We've been working very hard on this. And it would be a shame to lose that MassWorks grant. There's no question. But I just want to clarify one thing. What we are asking for is to take a site plan approval that's been vetted to the ends of the earth, and locking it in and not letting it go away. Now, when you say you want to understand it, I'm happy to come in and spend whatever time is necessary that you wish and go through everything. I'll bring my engineers in. They can talk to you. David Mnuchin has a terrific understanding of this. We've had many meetings. We started a committee a year and a half ago that got this thing kicked off. He's a PE. He's a very knowledgeable guy. He can come along and we can explain this whole thing all the way through. But the problem I have is at this point we have developers that really want to get going. We have a MassWorks that's saying if you don't get shovels in the ground, we're going to give the money to someone else. And it's that simple. Plus we got an administration that's going out, unfortunately. So we got a time constraint. So we got a real dilemma. And that dilemma is either I need to be able to tell a developer, you can build that project. If you want to make changes to that project, you can make some changes under what David termed at one point a technical review or minor modification, or et cetera. And the developer may very well wish to do that. But they first want to know that they have a development that they can go to their financiers, because that's who drives development. Developers can't build anything without their equity guys. And be able to say, we got a project that we can go pull a building permit and get shovels in the ground, but we can go make some modifications along the way. And that's what they need to know. So I mean, I hate to say it, but it really is a go, no-go decision as far as the extension and the transfer, because it's impossible to go to a developer and say, well, you know, are you interested in this? We think we can give you the site plan approval, but we're not sure. You know, we think we can get an extension, but we're not beyond 90 days, but we're not sure. We've got to have some definition, because what we have here is a huge bubble that burst, and it's starting to grow again, but everybody jumps in, and
All right.
pretty soon you got 15 developments going, and now the developers go to their equity guys and they say, we don't want to build apartments there. There's already too many built in Metro West. So we got a window of opportunity,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can
Alright.
jump through.
Well, let me show you the two motions we've got, okay, and I think this will help. First motion, I move, this has been suggested, and we can discuss this. I move that the planning board grant the transfer of the site plan approval for the property off West Union Street as more fully set forth in the permit to Jefferson at JPI, is that what we're saying here?
Jefferson at Ashland.
At Ashland, why did you write JPI, was that a suggestion, or is that just? Okay, as more fully set
Permit
forth
to
in the permit
JPI.
to Jefferson at Ashland LP, that's what they, JPI, gotcha, okay. Dated June 20th, 2008, and which was extended on June 24th, 2010, and then again pursuant to the Permit Extension Act until June 20th, 2014 to the property owner, Ashland RTD Apartments LLC, a Massachusetts limited liability company with a place of business at 12 Standish Lane, Winchester, Massachusetts. That's the first motion. So this one is specifically addressing the transfer. Second motion, correct, accurate? Okay. I move that it, for good cause shown, the planning board extend the site plan approval for the property off of West Union Street as more fully set forth in the permit to Jefferson at Ashland LP dated June 20th, 2008, and which was extended on June 24th, 2010, and then again pursuant to the Permit Extension Act upon or until June 20th, 2014 to September 20th, 2014, at which time the owner shall provide to the planning board a specific plan including milestones of how it intends to implement the site plan approval, and which shall also include an agreed upon development agreement with the town, which takes into consideration the existing covenant on the property, the Jefferson Ashland agreement, and the conditions of the MassWorks grant recently awarded to the town. Further, that this approval and extension shall not be transferable to any other entity without prior authorization from the board. So it does address the non-transfer, the covenant, the MassWorks grants, which were the big benefits to the town, among other things. You want to discuss maybe the first one, the transfer? Any discussion there? Does it make sense? And then how about the second one?
So in 90 days, we vote again on a 2-year extension?
If that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
For however long we feel like giving them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the extension only has to go till when they start acting on a building permit.
Mm-hmm.
So we could give them a 90-day
Right.
extension
They may do it
now,
before.
and then September 20th, give them a 30-day extension. But within that 30 days, they break ground, and then they're good for, however long it takes to finish the project.
I think it's reasonable. I think we're opening a can of worms to otherwise.
But yeah, 2 years would be typical.
So this 90-day, I think, sets a stage for what, and I think we've been pretty clear, we're looking for more detail at that point. So,
Could you explain what you mean by more detail?
looking for specifics on, including milestones of how it intends to implement the site plan approval, and which it also, basically what I just read. So I'll read it again before we vote, but,
Oh, I follow but
Yeah, you got it.
trying to clear up what intention, in other words, a little clarity as to what you mean by intention.
mhm. Okay.
A developer in place or looking for a developer, I mean, what do you, I'm trying to get a feel for.
I mean, I'll read that motion one more time when we're in just 1 minute. So, on the first motion, okay, I'm gonna read a motion, and if someone wants to make this motion, you can say so moved. I move that the planning board grant the transfer of the site plan approval for the property off of West Union Street as more fully set forth in the permit to to Jefferson at Ashland LP dated June 20th, 2008, and which was extended on June 24th, 2010, and then again pursuant to the Permit Extension Act until June 20, 2014, to the property owner, Ashland RTD Apartment LLC, a Massachusetts limited liability company with a place of business at 12 Standish Lane, Winchester, Massachusetts.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that's 5-0. I have another motion. I move that for good cause shown, the planning board extend the site plan approval for the property off of West Union Street as more fully set forth in the permit to Jefferson at Ashland LP dated June 20th, 2008, and which was extended on June 24th, 2010, and then again pursuant to the Permit Extension Act until June 20th, 2014 to September 20th, 2014, at which time the owner shall provide to the planning board a specific plan, including milestones of how it intends to implement the site plan approval, and which shall also include an agreed-upon development agreement with the town, which takes into consideration the existing covenant of the property, the Jefferson Ashland Agreement, and the conditions of the MassWorks grant recently awarded to the town. Further, that this approval and extension shall not be transferable to any other entity without prior authorization from the board.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0. All right. Thank you. Is there anything else? That's it? Any other announcements?
I think I definitely would like us to take him up on his offer to present to us.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we will.
okay.
Okay. Does anybody else want to do that? We'll catch them offline.
All right.
Okay. So we've got to wrap up the meeting. Anything, any other announcements tonight? Subcommittee reports? Okay, it is now 10:30 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, he beat you to it. Mike beat you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
5-0. All right.
That comes together.
Have a great night.
Second.
Oh.